All right, are we good? Are we live? I think we are. Hello all and welcome back to the Women's Football Chat Live. Tonight, we're doing our first ever live transfer show, so we're going to be talking about some of the rumours and some of the deals that have already gone through this transfer window. So there's a lot to get through. It's been a busy, active summer window, and I think without being able to post every minute of every day, it's difficult to stay on top of it. So it's nice to have a stream, nice to be able to cover the topics that you want to discuss in the live chat, nice for us to be able to talk a bit more informally about some of the transfers, and yeah, it's good to be back live, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, it's very good to be back. It's been a difficult one, as you say, because of the Euros this summer. As fun as the Euros was, as great a month it was, a lot happened in that June-July period that has gone a little bit under the radar. So I do think it's important, as we are 3 weeks now away from the start of the WSL season. Obviously, the other top leagues in Europe are returning in the next 1 or 2 weeks as well. So it's important, I think, to keep up with these live streams and to kind of summarise everything that's happened to the best of our ability. There will be things we've missed. There will be things that you guys have missed. So I think it's a nice opportunity to just try and keep on top of everything and keep up to date with everything that has already happened this window and that could potentially happen in the next month or two.
Yeah, it's best. But that's the thing. I think we don't expect this many transfers this early in the window. I think a little bit of me was expecting that the Euros would see everything sort of just be pushed back into August, but throughout the Euros we saw Man City make moves for Agyemang, literally anyone they could. Agyemang, Sydney Loman I think went just after the Euros, but it was around the same time. They signed a new manager just before the start of the Euros, so there was so much action at City before we even got into the Euros. Then before the Euro started as well, we saw Chelsea sign Olivia Peng. We saw so many deals, so many rumours all happen across those couple of days. So it was a bit manic, and then throughout the years we started to see more and more transfers, and then since then, as expected, it's ramped up. But there's been a lot of spending, there's been a lot to discuss. Let's get into. I want to start with Fridolin Rolfo, because it's the breaking news, and we've already got a question in the live chat. Alyssa's saying, "I'm shocked by Rolfo to United, but I feel so terrible about the Barcelona situation. Why can't they sell a few of the men's players? Why does it have to be the women?" So, where do we want to start there? Rolfo or on Barca? Obviously, we did a video on Barca earlier today. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on Rolfo. Are you starting with Rolfo or Barcelona?
I was going to get the Barca out of the way.
Let's get Barca out of the way. Yeah, it's a horrible situation. I completely agree. As we said earlier in the video, obviously go watch it after this stream and it'll be more of a put together and better point. But it's a really disappointing situation. It's a shame that the way the budgets work, it means that all the money that the women's side have earned and all the players that they were paying, they're the ones who are having to face the consequences because all their money needs to go to the men's side. And it is a shame to see it's still in this 2025, in this era of women's football, that in certain countries and certain clubs the women's side is being put behind the men's team. And obviously it's very different in England because due to the budgeting and the FFP rules, both clubs are treated, both the men's and the women's side are treated very differently. They've both got their own FFP pots. In Spain, it doesn't quite work like that. And for that reason, we are seeing the men's side get greedy and basically to try and cover up their own mistakes, they're taking money from the women's side. They're, taking all their prize money, making them cut players. And it's a real shame because it's seeing a European giant, probably the best side in the world right now in Barcelona, be pulled apart. And although they've kept some of their core players, a squad of 17 is not enough to win Champions Leagues. It's not enough to win trophy after trophy. So it's a massive shame to see an issue dominate the club, and the side that are taking the fall for it are the women's side. We mentioned earlier that the men's side could easily sell a couple of their homegrown players and they would be in a much better position. Instead, we're seeing so many players be let go from the women's side. It is a massive shame. The only positive is that those players have managed to find clubs. That is a big plus, that the players that have left Barcelona, their careers aren't in jeopardy. They've all managed to find moves elsewhere in Europe. So that is a good thing from the players' point of view. But it's a horrible situation to see. As much as we joke about, Barcelona having this rivalry with the English side, I want that rivalry to remain. We look forward to seeing the WSL sides take on Barcelona. We look forward to seeing Lyon take on Barcelona, and we need Barcelona to be there to provide that competition. So yeah, it's a shame to see the club in that situation, and I really hope that it's not going to have a detrimental impact on their ability to win trophies this season.
Teams who lose Champions League finals should go on to have a summer where it's this huge sort of rejuvenation, adding talent to go and push on for it the season after. They shouldn't have a mass clear out of a lot of big stars. So that is always concerning, and I think it's a bit of a shame. I think it's going to affect the competitive landscape of of the women's game at the moment, because what we've got is that because the English clubs have to compete so aggressively in the WSL against each other, you end up with a landscape where they can't just dominate.
Yeah.
Despite having the biggest revenues, despite having the biggest budgets, despite spending the most money, they can't dominate Europe at the moment because they have to play every game in the WSL like it's an important fixture. Whereas in the Liga F, there are some games where Barcelona can take off, let off a bit of steam. The difference now is that without Barca in the equation, we're either going to see Lyon back to a dominant phase, or we're going to see Lyon versus the English clubs. But I think having Barca in there is healthy for that competitive standpoint. So that's going to be worrying. I still think that Barca will somehow be okay. I still think that they'll win everything domestically, and I think they'll get through to the winter window. And then it all depends on how the finances are at Barca. Yeah. But if they can find more wriggle room in the budget, then they'll be okay. I think the major thing is that the problem that Barca have is that they've still got players on huge deals. Bonmati is believed to be on over £1 million, and that's huge compared to anyone else in the women's football landscape right now. So that, for me, you can't have so many players on huge wages. She's on loads. Alexia Putellas is a huge contract. And so you're going to end up with that situation. That's only added to what's a tough situation for Barca.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That is the important clarification, is that the reason we've seen so many players leave is because of the accumulative number of wages and salaries they're trying to save. Because as you say, they could just let go one of their big stars, and that would probably be the equivalent of letting the 5-10 players that have already left. And that will be the frustrating part for those kind of players, is because the dozen or so players that they've let go, the reason they've let so many go is because their wages are relatively small compared to the rest of the squad, and obviously especially compared to the men's side. So that's why there's been such a clear out. We could have seen, if they'd let 2 or 3 of their top players go, it would have been the equivalent of letting 12 squad players go.
I have to say, I'm surprised they haven't moved to or pushed a move on to Alexia Putellas.
Yeah.
I think this is the perfect time to sell. Coming off of a fantastic season in the Liga F, I don't think she's going to be able to match those numbers ever again. I think at the moment her price is at the peak point it's going to be. I think she's only going to go down now because she's already approaching 30. She's already had long injuries. I think this would have been the perfect summer to sell, and that clears a huge part of your wage bill.
Yeah.
Rather than selling 5 or 6 squad players, which now leaves them down at 17 players, I feel that Putellas would have been the better move personally. And it's tough because she's such a core part of Barcelona. But the money you would get from an NWSL side that would want to buy her, and the wages you'd clear off your budget, would have pretty much solved the issue.
Yeah.
That people say, "I'll just sell Bonmati." That's a completely different question, because Bonmati's a player in her prime right now. Her value will rise.
Yeah.
Yes, her contract is by far the biggest, but she's also, arguably the best player in the world right now. Whether that's debate or not, that's a question for later in the show, perhaps. But I think it's tough to say just sell Bonmati because she's so crucial to how they play, but I think you can sell Putellas, and yes, you lose a bit of competitive edge, but I think she is more replaceable than Bonmati is, especially given her injury record, especially given her age now.
Yeah, and you have a squad. It's as simple as that. If what they've done, and again, this is what they do with the men's side, and it's why they are now in so much trouble as a club overall. Rather than they let the relationships and the competitiveness of their squad get over their financial struggles. And the problem is that because they've done that, it means that it's going to get to the point where the financial struggles are going to overweigh that competitiveness, and you're going to lose it all. So they've done it really poorly, but it's what they did with the men's side. Initially, they just tried to get rid of loads of squad players while keeping the world-class players, and they had to get rid of so many squad players that it never really added up. And they're doing the same with the women's side now. Rather than just, setting back, admitting they were wrong, and letting a few star players go in order to shift the budget, they're trying to get by letting all these bench players go. It's not going to work because they've had to let so many players go now that they haven't got a squad for next season, and that's what I mean. There's no point in keeping. They want to keep the star players because they're the best, and they'll keep them. They'll make them the most competitive, but if you have to sell 10 players and you haven't got a full bench, that also makes you less competitive. So I think that they're looking at it in the wrong perspective. They're trying to keep their star-studded, homegrown, best players, but at the end of the day, all their troubles could be cleared by losing 2 or 3 players, rather than having to rip up all the contracts of the 10 or 11 players they have done so far. And they've still bought in Alexandria this summer. That, for me, I love a club that has no money and is really struggling, who just decide to bring another player in.
Barca have done it for years. Well, they get by spending other people's money.
Yeah.
Eventually, they have to run out of other people's money to spend. Do you think that this bar situation will be solved the same way the men's was, though, in that they'll just keep bringing La Masia products through and they'll be okay? Because Vicky Lopez coming into the side this season, she already looks at the level to be able to play. There's the Szymczak, who played for Poland, obviously, at the most recent European Championships, 18 years old, centre-back. I feel like she's already ready to play for Barcelona, especially in the Liga F. So do you think that problem could just be solved in the same way that they solve the problem in the men's game?
It's a mixed one for me because it depends how bad the situation gets. Because the other problem is that the B side has been completely wiped out. I think I saw somewhere they have 12. They've only just got a starting 11 for their B side, and that speaks volumes. Is that they're having to let their youth players go. They're having to let their talents go before they're even developed, and that is a massive loss of money. So again, rather than just swallowing that bitter pill, they're trying to get on with it and trying to make do, and that's just not working. Because I agree. I think that the La Masia players who have currently come through are going to be big, and the ones that are still coming through will go on to hopefully fix the problem. But they won't be able to fix the problem. You have to let them all go before they even get anywhere near the first team. So it's a situation. They've got to find a balance between holding on to those, making sure that they shift enough money to hold on to those talents who in the future will make up for that money loss. And although I think that is one thing they've got right, because the one thing they've got to get right, because so far they've got it wrong. Yes, they've let go of a couple of players that I think would have gone anyway, but there's been a lot of players that, for me, would have never left the club this summer if the club weren't forced to let them go.
Yeah, definitely. A few comments then on the Barcelona situation, then we will get on to transfer news, because that is the point of this show. It's supposed to be exciting, happy, not just focusing on the terrible situation at Barcelona. Alyssa's saying it's such a shame to see this in Big R 2025. Indeed, we shouldn't have this in the modern era, really. Big clubs not being able to spend because of their men's team. HB saying Barca are starting to look quite ordinary now. Depth is a really important thing, and they lack that. Completely agree. Players win games, but squads win championships. That's the simple thing of it. I still think they can win the Liga F this season, but Real will have to view this as an opportunity, a huge opportunity to take advantage of the situation, as Lyon will in the Champions League, as Chelsea will in the Champions League. So that's definitely something that those clubs are going to look at, taking advantage of it. And someone does actually mention, Jason says, no offence to Barca, but it's Chelsea signed a pounce now while Barca are struggling. Yeah, I mean, there was a question as well. Jason said, I keep seeing Onabatier to Chelsea. Don't think it could be true because it doesn't make any sense. I would love Onabatier at Chelsea. I think it should be a huge upgrade on the two right-backs Chelsea have, but it doesn't make any sense to the players they've got at their disposal. So I can't see that one happening.
Yeah, no, neither. I think that it is a really weird one, I agree, because I think those rumours will come out is because Barcelona will have, teams will be thinking, they're struggling right now, let's try and, kick them while they're down, basically, and go and pinch their players for a bit of a reduced price. And the agents of Barcelona will be thinking, I need to get my player out of this club ASAP and make sure they've got a football team to play for and that they're going to actually earn some the money they deserve. So I think that there will be big clubs who will be having that discussion. I don't think Battier will go to Chelsea just because Chelsea have already got Carpenter and Bronze, but I do think that there will be certain players in that squad where if you are a Lyon, a Chelsea and Arsenal, you'll be thinking, can I go and steal them while Barcelona are struggling? And you're spot on. It is now the time. Arsenal did, and this is why I think the even more worrying thing for Barcelona will be is that, yes, they did win a lot last season, but they didn't win the Champions League. Arsenal already dethroned them, and they were looking to do that again alongside Chelsea, United, Lyon, the Bayern Munich. But also, they lost to Real Madrid in the Liga F for the first time in years.
Ever.
Yeah, for the first time. And that was warning signs showing that Real are climbing. But the fact that Barcelona have dropped this year, with Real still making signs, they've got to be careful. I think you're right. I think Barcelona will still win the Liga F because of the quality that they have as a starting 11. But they've got to be careful. I think it'll be a lot closer this year. Maybe one of the cups could go to Real. Who knows? I think the Champions League, though, is going to be a very difficult one to win because exactly, we saw last year how Arsenal's squad won them that Champions League. But, the players came off the bench and made the difference in the final. We saw how the rotation throughout the group stage and throughout the knockouts won them the Champions League. Yeah. But having a full squad is what you need to win those knockout competitions. Barcelona haven't got that right now, and I think that will be a struggle.
And the difference was Arsenal were able to rest up in the league in the 2 games beforehand because they had nothing left to play for. They had all their focus on the Champions League. So they were on a level playing field with Barcelona in that aspect. I think they had a better manager. I think René Slager is a better tactician than Perry Romeu. I still have huge doubts over Romeu. I think you look at his lack of reaction in games and the fact that there's not that change. It's expected of a young coach, and maybe that's something he'll add into his game. And you've only got to look at how quickly Jonathan Giraldez got to grips with it. In his second season, he went and won everything at Barcelona. In the first season, they lost the Champions League final. But again, there's still, you can't just create a parallel on the situations, because at that moment, Giraldez played a Champions League final against an incredible, was it Wolfsburg or Lyon that year? I think it was Lyon that year, and then he beat Wolfsburg in the year after, or something like that. But he played an incredible team in that final, and then they go on to the next season, and they looked even stronger. And he learned from that. The question will now be, does Perry Romeau learn from that final? I'm not sure. I don't know if he is the right man for the job. And let's talk Rolfo, because we've got a lot of questions about Fridolin Rolfo. Justin Williams just shouted Rolfo at us. That feels like a good time to move on. Fridolin Rolfo joining Manchester United on a free transfer. It's the story of United summer, really, signing Swedish players on no money. It's an interesting one for me. I think it's the right position. I'm not sure it's the exact right profile, but I do think it's a big name through the door. It's an important signing in that regard. But it feels to me she should be the left-back signing, not the left-winger signing.
Yeah, it's one of those for United where I think it's a sign they need to make. And yes, they've had a slow start, but I think the deals they have done have been big ones. And it's more a statement from United. And we said this, is I think it's what they've lacked, is a statement signing, a big-name player, someone that everyone knows who... Yes, it's not prime Rolfo, but it is still a player of very, very good quality. And it's what United need to show they mean business this season. They won the FA Cup 2 years ago. They got to the final last year of the same trophy and finished in the top 3 last season. They needed to go and make a signing to show that they are coming in to compete for the league, compete in the Champions League, and look strong in all competitions. And Rolfo, I think, yes, as I said, not been at her best. She struggled with injuries through the summer and through last season. But if United can get her anywhere near the level that we know she can play at, she'll be a very, very dangerous player. I think it's more of a statement. It's more of a on-paper signing, a shirt-selling signing than it is a quality. Well, not quality, that's the wrong word, because she is quality, but in terms of the perfect fit tactically or in terms of ability. But I think it's an important one because people will buy Rolfo shirts. It's exactly what United needs to do. It's a big name through the door, and it's an exciting transfer. That's what United have lacked over the last couple of years. And Turland a couple of years ago was a good one. Last year, I thought Bizet coming in, but with bringing in Rolfo, big name, gets fans excited. Everyone sat up this morning and went, "Wow, that's amazing!" And they went and did it. And fair play to them, because we criticise them when they don't do anything. We've got to praise them when they do something, because for me, it's a good piece of business on a free. It's a bit of a free hit. The wage is probably a little bit hefty because of the nature and the name, but I think it could be worth it. It's a very experienced signing, and I think it could be a deal that pays off.
I think a team who've never played in the Champions League before, bringing a player who has played so much Champions League football is crucial, and I think it's someone who bring a huge depth of experience to United. So I think it's really important in that regard. My question now is going to be how they use their wide players in conjunction with their fullbacks, because what we saw last season was that Gabriel George would tuck into what was a bit of a situational back three, and that Riviere would overlap, and this would create width in those areas. And I think Fridolin Rolfo is perfect for that. We saw her do a very similar role at Barca, but the difference was she would overlap as the left back and hold the width. As a left winger, she's really good at holding the width on that left-hand side, though. And actually, her deliveries into the penalty area, looking to find Elizabeth Turland, is going to be potentially a very deadly combination next season. My question is more around what happens with Bizet, in terms of I don't think she's great at coming inside. I think her and Riviere rotating in that role is fine, but they're not really able to create a natural shape that I think Skinner is hugely loving. The question for me is going to be, which random position do you think Skinner will play for Fridolin Rolfo in this season? I am going to put an early one in of I think she'll play a game in central midfield. Wow. I think we'll see. Well, he always does. I ended up playing DM for half of last season, so I think we'll see her have one game in central midfield at some point this season, would be my guess. Even if it's just like a Conti Cup quarter final, and for some reason she's playing central midfield, I just feel like that's going to happen.
Yeah, Skinner. That is the thing for me, is that United are now. They did well on the pitch last season. They're now starting to make waves off it as well during this summer. Is it the year where it all comes together? You never know with United, you never know with Skinner, and you never know with the owners.
If it is, it's going to be what I think is a four-way title challenge. Because I think Jägerlert's at City with no Champions League football as a distraction, and that will then lead to them being able to rest players in Conti Cup fixtures and having a fit squad for the second half of the season. plus some really good deals. I think Lohman replaced what they lost in Rord. I think Iman Bene is a great addition. I think they'll miss Mary Fowler for the first half of the season, but if she can be back around April time, that could be huge for the run-in.
Yeah.
So I think City will be really competitive this year. If United are competitive as well, that's going to be really exciting. I don't see any way that Arsenal and Chelsea aren't still up there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. I think we're going to have a four-way battle if United can make it that. United have got to have one look over their shoulder, though, with the way that London City are selling. Let's have a look at some of the comments then. Marcus says, if Riviere stays healthy, she's one of the best players on the pitch. Absolutely agreed. Done it multiple times. Probably the best right back in the WSL right now. Huge fan of Jade Riviere. Sapphire says, Rolfo really dropped off offensively last season, but she's still really good defensively. She did struggle a lot with injuries last season, though, and we saw her miss the start of the Euros with injury. I think it'd be interesting to see how she performs in that left wing role. I think the WSL as well, adapting to the WSL is not the easiest thing. We saw JC really struggle, and we've seen players come across from the Liga F and struggle. You know, I think Maya Ramirez, people were raving about her in her first 6 months at Chelsea, but last season she just wasn't consistent enough, and obviously kept getting injured as well, which didn't help. But I think big questions will be on Fridolina Rolfo's ability to adapt to a league which is incredibly physical. And it's not just physical in the sense of that aggression, that strength, but it's the league in which players run the most and move the most. It's the most transitional and most fast-paced league. So that's going to be a big question of a 31-year-old to come in and play such a crucial role. That'll be my big question. But I think overall it's still a good signing for United. I hope it's not their only left-winger signing, personally. But it all depends on how they're going to use Melvin Mallard. I have so many questions over United. I feel people will criticise Skinner, and I know he's not the most popular person. But I do feel that the squad building at United is just who can we get on a free? Yeah. And that doesn't always pay dividends. I think Ziggy Otion was a good signing, a very good signing. I think arguably a better signing than the Rolfo signing. I think Rolfo brings very important experience. If Rolfo was a left-back signing, I'd be sat here saying it's a perfect addition. They've absolutely nailed it. As a left winger, I have some doubts about her ability to come in and provide goals and attacking numbers, but I still think she's a very, very good player.
Yeah, I think United could end up with the same problem that I thought they had last season, unless they make more transfers, which is, again, it comes back to the point we made a few moments ago about how you win trophies and championships with your squad, not your starting 11. Last year, United's starting 11 did the job. They were superb. But it was when you looked at the squad, when you looked at the bench, I wasn't inspired. And again, I look at it this season, and I'm thinking the same thing. They've re-signed Rachel Williams. Yes, they brought in Rolfo, which will see.
That one makes no sense.
No, it doesn't at all. It's a random one. I don't think she's good enough to play at the very top level. Rachel Williams is not a backup Champions League striker.
And if she's third choice, then what is the point there? Because all you're doing is you're blocking the pathway for some of the young players coming through, and you're blocking it with a player who I don't think is at the level anymore. If she could be a very reliable third choice, I mean, I think she'll move into more of a mentor role this season anyway. I don't think she'll get a load of minutes, but it's still really confusing for me in that regard, because I just think you're blocking that route for young strikers if she is given minutes over some of their young players. That would be a huge concern for me. But overall, I think United are starting to build a nice squad. I still think they need a right winger. I still think they need a centre-back. Those would be the two areas that really need improvement for me.
And for me, they also lost certain results last year just based on stupid decision-making and personnel selection. Bizet should never play right back ever again. Don't play a right back. Just put players in their positions.
If Rivier's not fit though, she's the best for what they're looking to do tactically.
Thomas, I think the best thing they've done this summer is let Aoife Mannion go. Wow, that was the best. That was the best decision that they've made all summer. What a cracking decision that was.
I do think she'll be very good at Newcastle though. I think in the Championship she'll do very well. But yeah, I do agree. Watching her come on in that Manchester derby when they desperately need to hold on and just getting torn apart was a tough watch. I know she got sent off, didn't she? But yeah, that was a very tough watch. Let's talk. There's loads coming in the live chat. Love to see it. Couple questions about London City Lionesses. We'll definitely get onto them. They have made so many signings. We could just do next week's show just on London City because it would happily fill 2 hours if we talk about every signing. Nigel says, I'm begging for Liverpool to go down after hiring Taylor. I think he'll do really well. I think Liverpool and Taylor's a really nice combination. I think they're suited to how he wants to play football. I think he'll be really eager to make an impression after the second half of last season, or everything after December. Really, I think it all depends whether they replace Olivia Smith with anyone, because they haven't yet. And the fact they lost 5-1 in a friendly to Villa, I think people have overreacted a little bit. He had been in the door 6 minutes against someone who'd been in there for, in Arroyo, who'd been there for 6 months. So I wasn't too concerned about that. But I think he'll have a really decent season. It just depends. I think the battle for fifth is going to be ridiculously difficult this season. And again, it all depends on United, because they could get dragged into that and it's suddenly the battle for fourth. But I think if not, the battle for fifth will be very interesting. Ethan says, still need a proper defensive midfielder and left wing for United. DM? I don't agree. I think it depends on your view on Miyazawa. If she's going to play left wing, then yeah, probably. Because I wouldn't want to see Janssen at centre defensive midfield again. But I think Ziggy Otioma, Miyazawa is a really complementary pivot.
Yeah.
And then maybe for those tougher games where you're looking to sit in a little bit more, you push Janssen in and you go a little bit more defensive, 4-4-2 type thing. But I think overall, that Ziggy Otioma and a Miyazawa pivot would be super complementary, and Miyazawa would still have that license to roam forwards, and Ziggy Otioma is really good as a single pivot player.
And they've got Awujo, who they bought in last year, and then just went, tell you what, let's also bring in Lisa Nalsoon and just cut any minutes to Awujo. That one was bizarre for me.
Nalsoon's been there a few years now, hasn't she?
Is she? I still don't think she's good. I still don't think she's good enough. For me, she's in that Rachel Williams bracket. Shouldn't have been kept on. Needs to go, because what she's doing is that she's just bringing her on as a Awujo makes no sense to me. Why would you bring a Awujo in? And then she barely played last season. How can a either loan her out or player? How can a young player develop by just sitting on the bench and watching her team play football?
I think she had an injury at the start of last season, Awujo, as well. I might be wrong on that, but I think she'll start to get more minutes this season. I think they'll start to use Janssen more as a centre-back. I don't think you can go... And I know that United fans won't like this, but I don't think you can go into a Champions League campaign and play with Millie Turner at centre-back and expect to go incredibly deep. I think she's a good player, but I think Janssen is a much better centre-back. And I think she's not quick enough to play defensive midfield against a team who are very good on the break.
Yeah, it's as simple as you cannot compete in 4 competitions with 2 centre-halves and one playing defensive midfield. It could be anyone. Laetitia is brilliant, but she can not play as many minutes as she did last season because they're playing in 4 competitions, and if Laetitia is starting every single game, she will get injured. That is, we've seen it with Chelsea players over the last couple of years. We've seen it with Arsenal players. If you overuse them, it would be a horrible, horrible thing to see Laetitia, who is coming into her prime right now, and Turner as well, who's developing massively and has gotten into the England setup. It would be a shame to see why those two get injured purely from being overused. So I do think it's important that either United drop Janssen back and bring in a defensive midfielder, or I think they need another centre-half anyway. I don't think 3 centre-halves is enough.
Yeah, absolutely they need another centre-back. And there's such a problem with squad building that hasn't been highlighted. But I guess who's on a free right now is their biggest question, isn't it? Because that's all they're able to sign. I think they would have been interested in Ingrid Engen. I think if Mappy Leon is to leave Barcelona, I think they've got to go hell for leather. As much as suddenly I would have huge questions as to who's going to play where, I think that would still be a fantastic signing, and maybe even, then deal with the problems that creates afterwards. But just sign her first, and they've got the best centre backs in the league, I'd say. With Leon, Janssen, and Laetitia. That's 3 of the best centre backs in the league. They're incredibly good. But yeah, I think United have got to be targeting a younger player there, someone that can learn under Laetitia for a few years, be our understudy, and then either they sell Laetitia on because they haven't reached the level they should have, or they'll be at a high enough level that those two can rotate.
Yeah.
So someone in that sort of bracket, like how Chelsea have signed Avila Berman and before her Melissa Pomey, that sort of signing, a younger centre-back who would be happy with rotational minutes, that's the sort of deal they need to be pulling off for me. So, yeah. Cammy, asking a question on Arsenal. So let's move on then to the reigning UWSL champions. Arsenal fan here. Cammy says, I know it's been reported we'll still bring someone else in. I think we need at least 2 more signings. Centre-back and a 6 is a must, considering Catley was meant to be a rotational option. Yeah, let's discuss Arsenal then. Do you agree that a centre-back and a 6 is what they need?
I think so. It's a very difficult situation at Arsenal right now because for me, obviously, don't get me wrong, before I say this, deservedly European champions, absolutely brilliant. But when you look at that starting 11, and you look at players like Kim Little still starting majority of minutes in 2025, You look at Steph Catley, who is predominantly a left back, playing as that starting centre half. I look at that and I don't think it's Champions League winning quality. Obviously, it went on to win the Champions League. Absolutely brilliant, and credit to them. But I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think you can get away with that for this season. And of course, again, it worked in knockout football, is the other caveat. Didn't work domestically. And that will be, I think, the frustration for all the clubs. We spoke about how tight it could be this year, but Chelsea still walked away with a domestic treble last campaign. And that is a backward step from the previous year where
Invincible
Arsenal...
as well. And that was the biggest problem. I don't think anyone could close that gap. I think, as you say, Arsenal were brilliant in knockout competition. My question would be around their ability to be consistent and their ability to beat Chelsea and now potentially Man City and United. If they're all competitive, then that's going to be really difficult. Arsenal have got to become a much more consistent side. Yeah. They had a great period where they were able to... I mean, they scored like 4 goals every match for something like 6 games in a row, or did something stupid. And so they've shown that their attack is really strong. But I feel like there's still defensive frailties. I still feel their attack is... It missed a winger and they've brought in Livy Smith, so that's really important. But it's interesting because as good as Arsenal were last season, I still feel that they are 3 players away from winning the WSL.
Yeah, what I find with Arsenal is they are so good when there is nothing on the line, and then as soon as something's on the line, they capitulate. Look at last season. As you say, they went on a brilliant run where they scored 4+ goals or 3+ goals in, what was it 10, 11 consecutive games? Absolutely brilliant. And because of that, when Chelsea started to draw a couple, we had that situation where it was that Wednesday night where Arsenal travelled to Villa and United and Chelsea travelled to United, and all Arsenal wanted to do was win and Chelsea lose, and the gap would have closed to 3 points. What did Arsenal do? Went and got absolutely smashed by Villa, and that is their problem. Is that they are brilliant when they're cruising, when they've got nothing to play for. Chelsea are already ahead of them. They're already ahead of the other sides. They look brilliant when the pressure's off. But as soon as the hammer falls and they've got an opportunity to close to Chelsea, they seem to just find a way to fumble it or mess it up. And that's the problem, as you say. They are a couple players away from being able to stop those kind of things happening. But, that world-class elite level player who can handle that kind of pressure and can deliver in the highest games. And of course, they still can't beat Chelsea. They didn't beat Chelsea at all last year, and that's the problem. You can't beat someone to a league title if you can't beat them on the football pitch.
Do you not think that losing those games at the end of the season was more about their lack of depth?
They did rotate heavily in the Villa game.
That was a hugely rotated game, and I think when you look at Arsenal, if you put up Arsenal's first 11, definitely a side that could win the WSL, right?
Yeah.
But I think when you look at their second 11, when you're looking at who's a backup in each position, Zinsberger in goal. Obviously, a goalkeeper isn't as important as a rotational player, but and Zinsberger is fine. But is she a WSL winning player? Not really. And I think you look through the entire second 11, and I don't really see players that are of that same quality. That back 4 would be. I mean, I don't think even Cadena and Ruben Moy. You'd have Taylor Hines at left back. Reed. We can talk about Hines as well. I'm just not sure on why. I think it's fine as a backup player, but what are they doing with Jenna Niswonger? And I don't think Hines is a brilliant I think she's a fine backup option. I just don't think she's incredible.
Yeah, we saw, as I said, I mentioned earlier about Agyemang leaving United. I've never seen such deals be blinded by relationship and the emotion behind a transfer. Taylor Hines signing for the Champions League winning side is absolutely berserk. And I know Arsenal fans she came through us, she's one of ours, absolutely brilliant, great to have her back. Really? I no offence to any Arsenal fans out there, but I find it absolutely mind-boggling that Taylor Hines, after the season she's just had, which was actually probably better than the season 2 before that, has managed to sign for the Champions League winners. I find it incredible. It's not a signing that I look at and go, that's going to help Arsenal win trophies. It's just not. It's a backup. But that's not what Arsenal should be looking at. Arsenal should be in a position where reigning European champions, they want to win domestic trophies, they want to win the league. Look, what have Chelsea got? They've got top quality players. They've got 2 top quality players at least in each position. Bringing in Taylor Hines to the backup left back doesn't do that for me. Miles off it. And I think it's been a transfer that has been blinded by the fact that everyone loves her. And I think it could really catch Arsenal out this season, because if she comes into the League Cup and if she comes into the FA Cup games, that they could find themselves getting knocked out. Look what, I know Olivia Smith's now playing for Arsenal, but look what she did to McCabe in the FA Cup that got Arsenal knocked out. You put Taylor Hines there, and that would have been even worse. And that's my problem with it.
Yeah, I would want a more defensive option.
Yeah.
Not a player. And this is, I'm so confused as to what's happening with Jalen Nice-Wong, because genuinely, unless the only reason you brought in Hines is like a squad player, and there are players in the squad who need to be there just for that sort of morale and that. Well, no, it is a thing. You have like third choice goalkeepers who never play.
They'd be good at football, though.
Yeah, she is good at football. She's a very fine left foot, but she doesn't play the big games for me. She doesn't come off the bench and provide a player that can cover that position. Say, for example, McKay decides to get sent off again in a big match. Taylor Hines comes on the field, and I think that's a big downgrade. And in those big matches, you can't really afford that. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, but I just don't think it's an incredible signing, and I think people were quite overreactionary regarding it because there was this sort of huge outpour of this is a great signing from Arsenal fans, and I understand it why you'd feel that way when it's someone that came through the academy, but I just don't see the quality there. Rise of Saints really loved it doing a transfer show. Loads of comments coming. Really, it's impossible to keep up with all of them. Phil says we need height for sure. A lower dominance centre back and a traditional 6, but that's not what Renee wants to do. She wants 11 ball players. You can have a 6 who's comfortable on the ball while still being physical. I don't think they necessarily need someone that's just a brute in midfield, because you don't. Defensive midfielders committing tactical fouls is useful, right? But when McCabe does it all the time, it doesn't matter. They don't need someone else to do it because she'll deal with those fouls on the halfway line. So, yeah, I think a 6 who is comfortable on the ball, being able to rotate the ball, being able to maintain possession, being able to receive under pressure and build out from the back well would be really important, especially with Valti's injuries. Especially, I think this will be Kim Little's last season at Arsenal if they are serious about sort of pushing on to that next level. But yeah, so I think a defensive midfielder is really important for me. As we said in our one player every WSL club should sign, I think Elisa Sens would be a fantastic addition. But yeah, they've got to look at their options. But I think that that's the sort of mould of player I think would be a perfect suit for Arsenal. Yeah,
I think that last season Kim Little was that grit. I agree. I think teams need a bit of grit. They need a bit of solid. If players can put a tackle in, I go on that for ages. If anything, I think that too many teams don't have enough. To have too many tactical and classy players, they need a bit of grit and solid tackler in there. But we did see how, yes, Kim Little did offer that for Arsenal last season. She could put in a challenge and win the ball back. But how many times did she get caught on the ball last year in a promising position? Cost them a goal against Real Madrid in the away leg, and it cost them so many opportunities where I think a player, obviously, that I love, not slagging off Kim Little. I think, as I said, I think she's a great ball winner, really good leader, great player. But on the ball, she cost Arsenal last season, and that is exactly why. Once when Bounty didn't play, when we saw that pivot of Little and Caldente, it struggled because no one there was dropping in and progressing the ball, which is why Little then tried to do it and she lost it. So I do agree. I think Arsenal needs someone who can, face their own net, pick up the ball, play it to their centre halves, but also take it on the turn, keep things ticking over, and at least until Bounty gets back, they need someone who's comfortable at sitting in that on the edge of their own penalty area, in the high pressure scenarios, who can keep their cool and just keep the possession moving. Because if it's Kim Little doing that again and it's Caldente pushing on, that pivot will get overran again and it will cost them again. They'll keep losing the ball because high pressing. Look what Brighton did to them. Kim Little didn't stand a chance in there because every time she picked up the ball, Haley was right on her, would win it back, and that's why Brighton did so well in that game and took a great fight to Arsenal. That was in the away game. But yeah, I do agree. Arsenal need a 6 who can play the ball. Centre half, I think if you can get an upgrade on Catley, then that's a good opportunity. But I don't see any reason why someone like Ruben Moy can't come back in. I think she's good enough to play at that level. Ida Val just, she did well, and then I agree.
She didn't really play under Slagers.
And that will be my big. I think that is the biggest thing. Is that again, I'll keep mentioning this, but squad. Arsenal did win on the Champions League on their squad, but what let them down in the league, and especially I know it was Slagers' first 6 months in charge, but she stuck with 111. And that was my biggest problem, is there was a lack of use of the squad, and you can't do that across a whole season because it will catch you out, you'll become too predictable, and players will just get fatigued.
I think it's hugely beneficial that they were knocked out of the FA Cup in the quarterfinal stage.
Yeah.
They were out of the league title realistically with 4 games to go, and they were knocked out of the Conti Cup at the semi-final stage, I think, to Man City.
Yeah, Man City late on.
That they had the advantage of the fact they had, that's about 8 games less than they should have been competing in. If they want to fight for it all this season, yeah, that squad depth's got to be better for me. And I think they are looking to try and remedy that. Few people, Cami, Juliana saying, I think Arsenal will go for Sam Coffey and Jan. That'd be interesting. I think we're going to see a mass exodus out of the NWSL because there are, I think you look at the landscape of football at the moment, and I think the way in which Emma Hayes is looking to play is much more similar to the European style of football, which is much more tactical rather than NWSL, where I think the tactics are a little less refined. I think you look at how Geraldes went there and just completely walked it.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Marta being just an absolute cheat code in the final, he would have won it in his first 6 months. That's ridiculous. No manager should be able to walk in, but because he's a better tactician than any other coach in the NWSL, he was able to do that. And so I think that a lot of the US players, with Hayes now as the manager, will be encouraged to move to Europe. And obviously the political state of America at the moment isn't good for anyone. If you are not a white man from Texas, it's not a great place to be by all accounts. So I think we'll see a sort of max exodus in that regard as well. So we've already seen a load of American players, even in the last 6 months, leave America to come to Europe, and I think we'll see more of those. If Rodman and Wilson weren't injured, then those two would be players that move into Europe already. Yeah, I'm convinced of that, and I still think there's a question earlier about Rodman to Chelsea in the winter window. I could definitely see it. Yeah, definitely. She looked sharp on her return from injury in the NWSL 2 weeks ago, something like that. Maybe even longer, but yeah, when they came back from summer break, she looked really good in her first game back, and so I think she'll look to make a move to Europe, and I think Chelsea will be the side that are desperate really for that sort of top quality right winger. So I think that move feels like the worst kept secret. Yeah, I think that feels like a smart move, especially because you consider Ben Shelton, who she's dating at the moment. A lot of tennis is quite Eurocentric. I know they've got the US Open, of course, but. And obviously they do have global games, but the fact that 2 of the big majors are Europe and a lot of the smaller tours are Europe, I think it just makes sense from a logistics point of view. From looking at the next World Cup in 2027, I think she'll want to come into Europe, play in a very tactical system. It's also more suited to when the World Cup comes, in that it's at the end of a domestic season. Yes. So you're ready. Yes. You're sort of ready to go for that, but. Yeah, I think she'd be a very good fit. Marcus says, I hope to see some players look to Canada to the Northern Super League. It's starting to fly. It's interesting. I haven't seen much about the Northern Super League. I know that it exists, but I haven't seen loads about it. I'll be very intrigued to see if it starts to break into more regular media, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I feel like we're going to see a lot more different leagues pop up in the next few years, a lot more investment across the leagues. I think at the moment, the problem with Europe is that you've got a monopoly in Spain, a monopoly in France, not enough investment yet in Germany. But there was a huge amount of investment at the start of the women's game, and that's sort of tailed off, but they're still in a really strong position where it's very competitive. And then loads of investment in the WSL. Yeah. And my concern, again, is similar to sort of men's football, where you've got a similar setup where there's like one team from France who could win the Champions League, 2 teams from Spain who could win the Champions League, maybe 1 team from Italy if they were very lucky, and then there's like 4, 5, maybe 6 teams from England who could win it. And I think that's again the way that women's football is going at the moment. This season, I think we'll see all 3 sides. If United can actually get into the competition this time, all 3 sides should be into the knockouts. Oh yeah, possibly with Arsenal and Chelsea through as the top 4, so automatically through to the quarters. So I think we're going to start to see that monopoly. And I mean, you've only got to look at the quarterfinals, the semi-finals last year, where you had Arsenal, Chelsea, Lyon, and Barcelona. And I think we're starting to see that more and more. The season before that was Chelsea, Barcelona, Lyon, and PSG. Yeah, I think we'll start to see that sort of continue that cycle. Especially with City and Chelsea played each other. Like again, it could have been a scenario where we saw those 3 WSL clubs all get into the semi-finals, but it was impossible. But yeah, I mean, if I had a lot of money right now, I'd just go I'd just pick one of the random teams in one of the smaller nations, pump loads of money, and just win the league every year and try and build into Europe. Because, as you say, that you're getting that you're getting that feel where those big 3 or 4 leagues have now already been decided, and that we could see a very large gap start to open up in between those 2 different areas. I'd love to see, because like Switzerland have just won the Euros, now huge investment off the back of that. Yeah, I'd love to see clubs in that country look at how the people of Switzerland sort of were hugely into the women's game and really invest this season, and suddenly you get a completely different league that we don't really have in the men's game. Obviously, there is a Swiss league, but those teams never win the Champions League, never have done, and it's rare they even get into the knockouts. So I'd love to see a different power emerge in the women's football, but we'll see what happens in that regard. We're still only about halfway through what I want to talk about with Arsenal. Let's touch on Beth Mead, because there's an interesting comment a moment ago about holding on to players too long. It's from Emmanuel Irvin, who said, the problem with Arsenal is over-attachment of players that offer us nothing. Look at how long we had Hurtig, and she did not play for us a lot. Let's talk about Beth Mead, because I think it's in a similar ilk of someone who perhaps is staying there because she's Beth Mead, rather than because she's the right player for Arsenal in this moment. I worry about her minutes next season at Arsenal. I think the move to London City would be hugely good for her, because she suddenly goes from being one of many players at Arsenal to one of the stars at London City. And I think for Arsenal, being able to get a transfer fee out of a player who's had massive injury problems over the last few seasons would be very positive for me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that but the point about Arsenal in terms of not only holding on to players, but bringing in players, Arsenal, they have one of the biggest fan bases in the world. They've got a lot of players on board, and because of that, there's a lot of relationship between fans and players, and there's a lot of love for the Arsenal players that are already there. And I think that within the club, there is a want to buy players or keep players for the publicity side of things. But as you say, Beth Mead is one of the most loved footballers in the world. And I think that has slightly clouded as to why she's staying at Arsenal. Because for me, is Beth Mead. Again, Pitt will carry out this because she got the assist in the Champions League final. And don't get me wrong, she still has brilliant moments, but can Beth Mead consistently deliver performances that are in a WSL winning, or a side that want to win the WSL? I don't think so. It's as simple as that. I think she had a good summer for England, and again, as I said, when she came on, did win the Champions League final. But for me, there was no consistency to her game last season, and that is our biggest problem. That is Arsenal's biggest problem. That we've said time and time again, is that they're not consistent enough to win the league, and that comes because they hold on to players and they bring in play. Again, Kelly is a very, very good player, but what was the predominant reason they brought her in this season once signed on a permanent? Because Pitt will like her. And I think that as much they've got a great fan base, and as much as people love Hines and Kelly coming in, they love Mead staying, and losing Miedemar was a horrid thing to happen. I don't think it was. I don't think that was a bad time to let Miedemar go. She wasn't.
No, that was absolutely the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
You're never going to get. Obviously, it was a free transfer in the end, but I know that the reason was because Idaval didn't rate her, didn't rate her, but he wasn't right. She wasn't right for what he wanted in that role.
No.
And so the right decision was for the manager to let the player go, and sometimes tactical fit and profile of player has to, or most of the time, that has to outweigh emotional connection, as good as that player may be. And I think that was the right deal to move her on. I think with Beth Mead, my problem is you've got Ford, who I think should start on the left-hand side,
100%.
Smith or Caldente.
Yeah.
Smith, who should start on the right-hand side, Kelly, who backs her up. I don't see where Mead gets minutes in that. Mead and Kelly, for me, are very similar because they're both players who are very good off the bench now. Mead is a fantastic player in her day, don't doubt that at all. But since her injury, she can't start every match. So she's very much an impact player. And so her and Kelly offer very similar things. Kelly's very good off the bench. I don't think she'll start loads for Arsenal in the big matches at least. I think it'll be if players perform the way we expect, if Smith hits the ground running and Ford continues her form from last season, it should be Ford on the left, Smith on the right, Caldente in the pivot.
Yes.
Shielded by a more defensive player, perhaps. But so I think in that, Kelly is a very good rotation player. The fact she can play either flank helps her. Then if Caldente can cover the left wing, and at the moment, I don't think Vivian Leah's got a loan move, has she?
I
haven't seen anything yet. I may be mistaken because I don't follow Arsenal on Twitter. So if anyone knows more on that, let me know. But I haven't seen that she's got a loan move, and I would quite like to see her integrated into first team football this season.
100%.
Perhaps I think she could offer you the same sort of quality that Beth Mead does. I think Beth Mead's a fantastic player, but this is the right time to cash in. If you can get a transfer fee out of London City Lionesses, if you can clear that wage bill and use that to go and get a top quality six and a centre back, I think it's a fantastic window. Yeah,
Mead had a really good summer, and I think that rather than looking at that and just saying she should stay at Arsenal, it, as you say, time to cash in, because I don't think you'll get a summer like that out of Beth Mead again. I don't think that. I wouldn't say she was spellbinding this summer. I just thought she played pretty decently, and I don't think that we're going to see that level. I don't think we're going to see that consistency for a side like Arsenal who want to win trophies, who want to go and win the Champions League again. And you're spot on with what you say about Leah, and again, it's the same with Kafaji, who they're now loaned out, and with other players they've let Godfrey go, and we're seeing these players go out on loan and have to leave because they over the last couple of years they're favoured to give minutes to senior players that are loved rather than young and up and coming talents, even if those talents are slightly better. So for me, I think that it is time probably for Beth Mead to move on and to give an opportunity for the youngsters to come through. How Kafaji got no minutes last season because yes, Freedom Arnhem was brilliant, but we didn't see to get a mention or get a minute here and there, and that's my problem is that favouring senior players over the youth just because Pitt will know who the senior players are. That's not how football should work.
I think the problem for us is they didn't use the squad well last season, and now they're in a position where Kafaji wanted that loan move out, and I don't see a route to her for the first team at all.
Not anymore.
For her to the first team. So I think that Brighton's a fantastic destination for that. We haven't spoken about that signing at all yet, but that is the perfect deal. I think I even said it at the end of last season when we spoke about Arsenal in the season review. I said that Kafaji needs a loan move and Brighton would be perfect. And they've made it happen, and it's smart. I think it is exactly what Brighton needs, exactly the move Kafaji needs. She'll be perfect for Vidicic's style of football, and I think that they'll probably sign her next summer after what has been a fantastic year, I would expect.
Yeah.
So I think she'll do really well there, especially if you bring in Michelle Agyemang there as well, which we can touch on now. Agyemang to Brighton, another rumoured loan move. I've seen some people say that she shouldn't do the same loan move twice, but I think Brighton, without a striker at the moment, it's guaranteed minutes.
Yeah.
It's a side that she knows. It's a system she knows. It's a manager that you know is incredibly good and plays a similar, not identical, but similar brand of football where it's all about possession dominance and the role Agyemang will play at Brighton, while it's slightly more transitional than Russo. A lot of it will be back to goal. And I think it's a perfect fit. So where is the problem?
Yeah, exactly. I think that Michelle Agyemang has proved this for England that she needs a loan move somewhere. She's good enough. She's too good to be a third choice striker at Arsenal. And yeah, as you say, it is the same loan move, but a completely different context. You're looking at a Brighton side who, as you say, have lost Nikita Paris. They need a number 9, so Agyemang would be the starting number 9 through the middle. Also, you've got Seike, and they might bring someone else in as well, but Agyemang would fit in there. And you've got a Brighton side. It was last season was a very new look, unknown Brighton side, and I thought she went into it and did pretty well, especially because Brighton seemed to tail off towards the end of the year, but Agyemang seemed to keep up that level, which is very impressive. And I think that if she goes into the Brighton side, who will hopefully over the summer have solved the problems that they had towards the end of last year, Vidicic would have matured as a coach, he'll have learnt from last season. So you're looking at a squad that hasn't been overhauled like it was last summer, a manager that's now had a season in the WSL, and a starting role opening up. It's a perfect loan move, and I think that 22 games under her belt, Michelle Agyemang could put up some serious, goal and assist numbers. Yeah. And then, it's the type of I feel like it's the type of move where if she did, she can do well enough to say, I should be competing with Leslie Russo at Arsenal, and then Arsenal go, hold her hands up, fair enough, goodbye, Stephen Blacksenia, stop being offside, bring in Michelle Agyemang and score loads of goals, because I think that it is right. Michelle Agyemang, what she doesn't need to be she doesn't need to sit behind Blacksenius and Russo this year. That'd be a waste. Get her a loan move where she's starting, and for me, she's a season of starting in a high level away from being Arsenal level.
And I think Blacksenius' contract was up next summer,
which would be perfect.
So I think that it's a nice sort of situation. The problem is Agyemang's contract's also up next summer. Yeah. So if they are loaning her out, they have to renew her contract, or they're going to be in a very tough spot where she can basically ask for anything, and if they say no, then she'll just go somewhere else where she'll be paid that money. Yeah. So I think they'll want to agree a new deal before, but I think that deal will happen. I think the only reason we haven't seen the announcement is probably because they're just working on the details of the contract extension at Arsenal and then the loan move to Brighton. We're still a few weeks out from the start of the season, so there's still time for all of that to happen. A few things coming in the live chat. Anthony asks, I think it's Anthony, do you believe Chelsea played better than Arsenal in their win against them? Everyone knows the referee decision was a major factor in Chelsea wins. Absolutely they did. And Bon Pastor showed why she has won multiple Champions Leagues, why she's won multiple titles, why she is such a good coach, because she's tactically better than Arsenal and City last season. And those are the important games. What they did very well was they allowed those teams to have possession. Chelsea played a more defensive system, and then they were able to break away quite effectively and play more transitional style. What confused me is why Bonpastor saw that happen and worked flawlessly and decided not to do that in the Champions League against Barcelona. I think that could have given Chelsea the win. Yeah. But ultimately, she decided to change her style, be super aggressive in the first leg, and that killed any hope.
Yeah.
And then the tie was done by the time we got to the second leg. But yeah, I think it's I think they were the better side in both those games. Again, it depends. People say, people describe good football as one brand of football, but I don't think it is. I think there'll be this summer season is going to be really interesting. I think Chelsea are going to change what they're doing tactically. We'll probably do a video on that soon, and that'll be really interesting to see if Chelsea do that. Based on what we saw at the end of last season, based on the players that they've got at their disposal now, I think we will see a bit of a tweak there. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think, though, Arsenal are probably the most settled side going into next season at the moment.
Yeah, I think...
Just because Chelsea I think will go for a tactical shift. City are making a lot of changes and potentially a giant tactical shift. United haven't changed anything, so maybe they're maybe they're just going to be settled.
United are an unknown every season, but yeah, I think Arsenal will be happy with the situation they're in. They seem to be in a very similar position which they ended the season, which was as European champions, and I think that they will, if Arsenal can raise that consistency level, they will push Chelsea all the way this season. And that is a very exciting thing, even from a Chelsea fan's point of view. That is exciting. I want for talking to you guys and for the sake of the league and from a neutral point of view, it'll be so great to see a title fight. And I think if Arsenal can add that consistency to their game, they will take Chelsea right to the finish line, and that will be very, very exciting. I also think that we'll end up I think we went backwards last season in terms of the trophy winning. How we went from all three of the domestic trophies being shared between Arsenal, United and Chelsea to suddenly Chelsea win them all last year was a very backward step. Hopefully this season we'll have it again where 4 top quality sides in City, United, Arsenal and Chelsea. If any side wins more than one domestic trophy, I would be shocked because I just don't think it will ever happen. I don't see Chelsea. I mean, obviously, it's the League Cup is different because with Chelsea, Arsenal and United, obviously they go in later. So technically it's only 3 games, which I like and I don't like, because how you can win a League Cup but only play 3 games in it's a little bit questionable, and that doesn't potentially.
But it does lower the fixture load, and I think nobody actually wants to watch the Conti Cup like group stage.
And it does give
from the fact of those top clubs.
Yeah.
Watching a Durham Chelsea, it's fine if it's in the FA Cup because it's like 1-2 games. It makes it special.
True.
If we just watched these top sides put out their reserve team and still beat a Championship side, what is the point in those fixtures?
Yeah, I'm glad that it is different to the makes it different to the FA Cups, and I think the group format does present an opportunity. We saw last year some Championship, due to the way that you get points. Obviously, if you draw, it goes to penalties, and if you win on penalties, you get more points than if you lose on penalties in every single group game. And I like that because we saw last year how some Championship sides managed to finish ahead of WSL sides. It also does WSL 2 sides finish ahead of WSL sides in the group table. I think we'll get that this year. We've got some great matchups going on up and down the group stage. But yeah, I would be surprised if we saw one side win more than one domestic trophy, because Chelsea, yes, they could win the domestic treble, but I think that they will happily. I think it's a really interesting climax because I think Chelsea would happily, will prioritise the Champions League by throwing away the League Cup or the FA Cup. Whereas for Arsenal, I'd love to, and again, if you're an Arsenal fan, get involved and I want to have your opinion on this, but surely for Arsenal, they'd rather win the WSL this year. It's been so long since they won the league. They've now won the Champions League twice, so even if Chelsea do go and win it, Arsenal still won more used WSLs than Chelsea. Yeah. So for Chelsea, they won it 6 years in a row. Surely Arsenal want to go get their hands on the WSL.
I think people, I know Arsenal fans say, they've won 15 titles before, but because of the huge shift, especially in sort of the last 5 years, it's a completely different game in a sense. And I think as much as it's a bit like when fans of, I don't know, Sheffield United or Sheffield FC, when they're the only club, when they brag about it's that same sort of thing where you look at Arsenal had like 4 years invincible, which obviously never going to happen again.
No, never.
And that speaks volumes about the state of women's football at that time. But it doesn't undervalue their achievement in a sense, but it's not, you can't compare it to the modern day. I think because of how quickly the game has changed, even in the last 5 years, in terms of professionalism, in terms of the coaching standard, in terms of the quality on the field, I think it's almost a completely different game. So I think there's been such a rapid shift in the last few years. Arsenal want to win one in the modern era, of course, and I think they're in a position to definitely compete to win everything this year. So it's gonna be fascinating.
It's a type of season where if one side starts slow, they could be completely out of it. What City did so well 2 years ago when they pushed Chelsea right to the final day is they started fast, they played Chelsea early on, and they competed in that game and drew it, and probably should have won it. Very weird game of football that was. But it's one of those where City came out the blocks fast and they stuck with Chelsea all the way. They led the league. Whereas over the last couple of years when we've seen Arsenal in that title fight, they've always been within touching distance. They've not been right with Chelsea. They've not led the league at times, or it's not in that 2 years ago between Chelsea and City, it to and fro. To be honest, without Steve Blackstenius, Man City would have won the WSL 2 years ago. That it is as simple as that, and that again is why. Obviously, I know we touched on Liverpool earlier. That's why you shouldn't count Gareth Taylor out just yet. But I think that Arsenal, what they need to do this year is get out of the blocks early, start fast, compete. Difficult, not a difficult first. To be honest, I think yes, London City is not the nicest first game, but with Chelsea and City playing each other, what an opportunity! Because Arsenal, there's a realistic chance that Chelsea draw or lose to City, and suddenly Arsenal could find themselves 2 points ahead of both of them after game week 1. And that momentum swing could be massive.
I also think London City will be a tough side to beat this season, but not game week 1.
No,
because they've got to bleed in like 7 new starters.
Oh, of course.
A whole new system in a new league. There's no way it clicks immediately, and they might, pull off something against Arsenal in the opening game week, and I'll be made to eat my words, but there's no way that they click and they are incredible from the start. So unless Arsenal slip up on the opener, that's a really nice opening fixture. I think there's a very good chance of City and Chelsea draw.
Yeah.
It all depends because we don't know what Jägerlöf is going to do yet with his City system. I think he'll either come in and it'll be a bit like Van Gaal at Man United, where they started incredibly quickly and they looked really good from the start, and then they just fell off. Or it'll be like Conte at Chelsea, where he came in and he started the wrong system initially, and they lost a few big games, and then they got to around November and he figured it out. Yeah. And then it just changed and they pretty much won every game there to steamroll the league. And I think City are still an incredibly good side, and people are underestimating that fact. As Fiona says, I've backed Man City to win the WSL this year. I think Jägerlöf is such an underrated coach. I think people are looking at him and saying, yeah, well, he won the Champions League in 2004. It doesn't really matter. But actually, I think having a Champions League winning manager is really good. He's a good coach. I think he'll come in and do well. It'll just be whether he can revolutionise a sort of new tactical setup, or not.
Patience is key for Man City, and this goes to everyone around the club, but also the fans, because I think that a lot of people lost it with Taylor as soon as Kelly kicked out a fast, and I know Cushing was only an interim, but I don't think he was backed one bit at all. I
also don't think Cushing cared. It was such a confusing situation.
Yeah, that is true.
Cushing from minute 1 was like, well, I'm only an interim. It's a bit like getting a supply teacher in. They're not going to, give everyone in the class A stars. It's just doing the job till the end of term. But
I think patience with Jägerlöf is important because, as you say, if you give him a couple of months, he's a time manager that can get it right. Yeah. And I think that the WSL is unforgiving, and I do think that, as you say, if they do get it wrong in the first couple of months, yes, they could find themselves behind. But it could be the type of thing where this season they build, and then next season they come into it, or they could stun everyone. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, to be honest, the season is setting up to... If I'm Man United right now, and this is going to sound a bit crazy, I'm not saying they're going to win the league, but it's got the type of feeling where City could have a few teething problems. Chelsea didn't end the season perfectly, and I think Chelsea and Arsenal will be so focused on each other. It's a type of season where we look at the table and we go, well, how on earth are Man United only 2 points off top? How have they done that? Because it's got the feeling where everyone is going to be so focused on Chelsea versus Arsenal, where Mark Skinner and his United team just start to creep up, and suddenly, bang, they're there. And when the hammer falls, they've won the league. I don't think they will win the league, but I think they could definitely sneak into the fight.
I'm predicting, just off of the bat, we've not even seen United get to the competition yet. Something like United go 6 from 6 in the Champions League group stage. I was going, what is going on? Like they're beating Barca or something. It was a scrappy 1-0 victory. Rachel Williams has headed home, and you're on stream, and everyone's laughing at you. All the Rachel Williams stands have come out in their full colours, and they'll win that game, and they get into the quarterfinal stage and they're playing someone like Lyon or something because for some reason they're in the playoffs and they just lose like 10-2 on aggregate. Giraldes completely tears them apart.
I love Man United.
That's the sort of thing I could picture.
I love Mark Skinner because you never know what you're going to get from him. But yeah,
very true.
I think it's a season where they could just sneak into something, or like again, it's a tight season where if Chelsea and Arsenal, if City have got problems and Chelsea and Arsenal are focused on the Champions League and the WSL, United could take both domestic cups, and suddenly that's a great season.
I think City are more likely to win a cup this year.
That is true. I think City's what Jägerlöts will enjoy actually in the good timing. The League Cup fixture, the group stage fixtures came out today, and I think that is actually perfect for them. Again, I think no Champions League and having that League Cup group stage will help City because yes, they lose all the extra games to the Champions League, so they haven't got to worry about that. Yes, it's extra games to play that League Cup group stage, but playing against Championship opposition. Yes, Aussie Pitt will say, well, it won't mean much even if they do win, but from a tactical point of view, Jägerlöts can try things. He can put people in positions pretty much risk-free because a Man City at 50% will still beat a Championship side. So I think that will help them, and I agree. Potentially they could go nick the cups, but I think we're in for a brilliant four-way fight, and that's without any of the midfield sides coming up and surprising people because we've mentioned Brighton, Aston Villa, Natalia Arroyo Ball is coming like a bullet train into this season, you feel, and that could be a very interesting side to watch out. So
I think Villa, Brighton, and I really don't know where London City sit right now. They could be anywhere.
They're the big one.
I think Villa will be very good. I think Brighton will be really good. I don't know who's going to be bad. Tottenham haven't done anything yet, and that worries me. But Martin Ho is a really good coach.
He was terrible last year.
Well, that's the problem. But was that Tottenham or was that Villa? It's so difficult to say. There's decent players that are a bit of both. Probably is the right answer. As always. But I just don't see it's going to drop off. West Ham have had a good window after building on a very good squad. I think they could probably do with a bit more, another signing somewhere. But overall, it's a very strong team. Leicester have Rantala back, have Mouchon back. I know they've lost Howard and they need to replace her, but overall a decent window so far, just having players back from injury. So I don't see who's going to be terrible next season.
It comes down to exactly what we said the day that London City Lionesses got promoted, where because of their getting promoted, whoever goes down is going to be a shock. We know it's going to happen because someone has to get relegated. Or obviously, they could win the playoff and remain in the league. But in terms of someone's going to finish last that we won't expect because we don't think any of them. I think, as you say, I look at all the sides in the bottom half and I think they've got the quality to not finish last. Yeah. London City are a really weird one, and I think that
the opening four are tough for them.
Exactly,
that could set their season. But
this is where it gets really weird because people have looked at the signings, and again, I think Yana Fernandez has been announced as we've been speaking.
Yeah, someone did mention that.
And again, they've rumoured with Beth Mead, and they've made some brilliant signings, but I think it's very important to have a balance. You don't get carried away. Because I think it's a big risk. It is not as simple as you go and sign loads of players when you get promoted and it instantly clicks. It will not click immediately. They will struggle to start with because it is so many new players. No, it is. I always believe this. It's my same problem I think I've got with Sunderland in the Premier League. When there is yes, you need to improve when you get promoted, but there is also such a thing where you bring in too many players that it is just too much for a new squad. And I think London City have just got to be careful about that. That mixed with their first four fixtures.
Can I just pose something to that? I don't have any data for the WSL, so I can't really comment on the league specifically. But I mean, you can look back at clubs that have come up and done well. But in the Premier League over the last 15 years, the biggest spenders have all stayed up, and that was Leeds under Bielsa in 2021. I want to say that season. It was Nottingham Forest when they brought like 30 players or something ridiculous. And I think there was someone else in there who I can't remember now.
That's stats.
They say, just your blind faith.
No,
is more important.
I don't know. I've always had this feeling in football. I've always said it is that I think that sometimes you can bring in too many players, and you can, if you have such a squad overhaul, it can cause a few teething issues. And I think, but as I said before, as I start my point, it's important to have a balance view because personally, I'm going to put it out there now. It's not really good for any predictions. They will be bottom of the league after 4 games. They're 100%. They've got a tough 4 and the squad's got a gel. But it's also important for people to not see that and suddenly go, they're rubbish, they're going to get relegated, because it's not as simple as that. I think it's going to be very balanced, but I personally believe a lot of people are excited by them, but for me, I think that it won't be as cut and dry as they've signed loads of good players. They're going to HMS piss the league and they're going to finish fifth. I don't think it'll be as simple as that.
No.
Even if they end up finishing fifth, I don't think it'll be one of those where they stay there forever, or like Brighton did, where they start really quickly and then drop down. I think they will struggle to start with. They've got a very good manager. They've got, ex-PSG manager, a brilliant coach who knows what he's doing. But I just think that to start with, especially with their first 4 fixtures, they will struggle. And for me, they'll be bottom of the league after the first 4 game weeks.
Yeah, Jason says, I think West Ham are going down. Chris says, I think Spurs will drop down. I don't think anyone's going down. I think whoever gets in that relegation playoff spot, I just don't see how they lose. Yeah. Personally, I think that's the bit of a problem at the moment. It's the problem when you've got 12 teams, because at the moment, I think every WSL club is good enough to be in the top division of English football.
Yeah.
And that's why we've seen the last 2 sides come up and go straight back down again. And with the level of investment that's in the game right now, I just don't think we're going to see next season because of London City coming in. I think they'll come in and they'll be okay, even if they were to finish bottom of the league.
Yeah,
I think they'll beat whoever's third in the championship. The bigger question will be in the next campaign. So when we're looking at 26-27, who comes up will be really important. But if that's something like a Newcastle and a Durham or a Charlton, something like that, I could definitely see a bit of a hierarchy forming. But because only is it one team or 2 teams that go down afterwards?
One team, and then is it one team, one playoff?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
So I think what we could see then is that you could end up with a bit of a relegation zone forming. And then it'll just be when there are clubs that spend loads, which Newcastle potentially could do, will push teams up and down. Jason says, have you already spoken about the best signings so far? If not, who do you think have been them? I think we're due another big signing. Because we've had Olivia Smith break the world transfer record. Love that. Other than that, it's just all been free transfers across the women's game.
Yeah.
We've not seen someone just pull the trigger yet.
It's and exactly.
Which may be more likely to happen in January when teams panic and when the American market opens up and that sort of stuff. But I just think there's still a big signing. Someone mentioned Linda Caicedo earlier. Genuinely, one of the best players I think in the world. My fear about her coming into WSL is that she doesn't contribute defensively, and so that would be something she has to add to her game if she came over. If not, she won't be able to adapt well. Because tactically, you have to be able to work on the ball and off the ball in this league. But I think she's a magical player. She's the sort of player who could go for big. I think the problem we've got at the moment is that all of the big assets, all the big signings are either injured or locked down to long-term contracts. Like, Rodman's not going anywhere this year. Wilson isn't going anywhere this year. Rodman could go somewhere in winter now that she's back from injury.
Maybe.
Wilson's married, pregnant.
Pregnant.
That's it. Obviously got married and also pregnant.
Yeah.
There was you don't take time out. You don't take a year off football to get married. Do you? A long wedding. I think the Barcelona players could move, but then they're not. I think if Putas was to go, she's off to somewhere in America.
And also Barcelona would have shot themselves in the foot. They've let all these players go, then they finally decide to let a star player go.
And they go, oh yeah, Chelsea, you can have Claudia Pina. That's
exactly.
fine. So I think they won't be keen to sell it into Europe. Especially if it's someone big like that. Evil says January would have a big signing, but this summer it's a lot of freaks, a lot of contracts ran out. I still think we're at a point where the contracts aren't long enough in the women's game, but
100%.
And what we don't know is whether that's changing because teams don't announce contract lengths. I don't understand why there's not that transparency yet in the women's game. There should be. An announcement should be. We're pleased to welcome this player to the club. She's joined a 3-year deal. That's all it's got to be. I'm not asking for something mental. There's a bit of transparency on that, so we know who's leaving when, and we can analyse the market in the same way that the analysts can do that. The recruitment staff will be doing. One thing we haven't touched on is United's head of player recruitment leaving. But they signed Rolfo the next day, so that felt very
maybe
much
that's
like a bit of a cover up. Whatever's happened there, but do you think that's just simply? He was told there is no budget. All we can work with is freeze. He's gone, fine, I'm not interested then. Because I can't do my job.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be employed by Man United at all.
I think, well, I think if you're working in the Man United women's setup, right, and you are told your budget is just free transfers, which is what we seem to be, what it seems to be. You're told your budget is just free transfers, and you look over at the men's side, who have just spent £200 million on a front three. You've got to be going, well, this is I don't want to work here.
Yeah.
What is the point? Because there's no investment, there's no interest. And so I think I understand his decision to leave. He's gone off to Utah Royals. I don't know enough about the NWSL to know if that's a good move for him, but I assume it's something good. It's a positive move for him, so it's presumably a sign with a lot of money. But yeah, I think it's the right move. For him,
it's a tough one. It's to judge United. So much goes on behind the scenes. I think that again, it's about having that balance because a lot of people don't see much into it, and I think that isn't quite the case. But also, some people jump the gun and suddenly start throwing out expletives about Ratcliffe and Skinner, and just get carried away with it.
My thing is, a lot of people criticise Mark Skinner, but I think the problem is until United invest any money, he's always got a caveat.
Yeah,
and so it's very difficult to say, Mark Skinner's doing a terrible job. I don't know if there's a manager who would do any better job with no investment.
No.
There's a reason that United can't get a better manager. It's because what manager is going to come into a side where they go, well, we're not actually going to buy any players for you, by the way, because we're not being given any budget. That's not an attractive proposal. So until we see Mark Skinner backed in the market and given the right profile of player and given money to spend, I don't think you can't really say that he's doing a terrible job. He's kept a side who have only bought free transfers really over the last few years, apart from Elizabeth Turland, Celine Bize, I think. I'm trying to think of any others. Laetitia a few years ago, but even that was 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah.
So they've not spent loads of money. Hinata Miyazawa was another one, to be fair, but this time they haven't spent any money.
It's another weird one though, where I think it is reasonable to say that United are on £1 million transfer away, or a world-class transfer away, from being serious contenders to win the league. And that is what I find so bizarre when they don't invest, because Jim Ratcliffe has £1 million. I know, we all know that for a fact. That's all he's got to give up.
Spent £1 million today.
Yeah.
on something in one of his many businesses.
What I find so bizarre is that if I was him right now in the position, I'd go, if I give the women's side £1 million, we could win the league. Happy days, loads of money. I don't get, and that's the thing. He
seems to be doing everything he can to make himself look like the biggest villain.
Yeah,
it's like, what action can I possibly take here, which ensures that I make the most amount of money, regardless of whether this could be a positive investment or not. Make sure that I make the most amount of money in the short term, and that my reputation is in absolute tatters. Because it would take such little investment to make it look like he cared about the women's team, and it would take no investment to say he cares about the women's team. Rather than say, I don't care. It's like just a terrible idea. Even if you're not going to invest, you say, of course we care about the women's team.
Yeah.
So bizarre from him. So I don't really understand anything he does. But yeah, to not invest to win the women's team is a tragedy.
And it gets to the point where, even from a rival fan point of view, when United won the FA Cup 2 years ago, I was disappointed because United won it. But I was happy for Mark Skinner, because there was no man that deserved to win that FA Cup more, because of what he's having to work with, the fact that he's got that side to back-to-back FA Cup finals, the fact he's finished runners-up with that Man United team, and with what he's got at his disposal. And again, if United were to go and win something again this year, full credit to him, because yes, he's got a good starting 11, but any team that, still, I look at the squad and I just think, with the budget they're working on, he's working wonders. Imagine Bon Pastor walked into Chelsea last year and Todd Boehly turned around and went, just to let you know, Sonia, you can only sign free transfers. Or if Guerrero walked into Lyon this season and Michel Kang went...
Actually, they have.
Yes, but look,
exactly what they've done, apart from like Lily Johanna.
Yes, but look at they've gone and signed on a free transfer. That's the difference. So,
and also you're going into a setup that has
spent money.
Incredible footballers there. So it's not like you're going to United side where you go, well, there's not really depth. There's not really the quality to compete.
Yeah, it's not like Ratcliffe bought the club after the Glazers have pumped money into the women's side for years.
Yeah.
If anything,
the United women's side isn't self-sufficient in the sense that they can't just go, well, we'll sell this player, then we'll have £1 million to spend, so then we can buy these two or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what they've got to push towards doing. So I think buying younger players would be very beneficial. Fiona says, have you listened to Skinner talking football? Yeah. I don't agree that people think he doesn't know what he's talking about. I think he's an incredible tactician. I don't, sometimes his decisions don't make sense to me, but everyone views football differently. I don't think he's doing a bad job at all at United. And people go, oh, he's playing all the players out of position. But the problem with what Skinner's trying to do, my only issue with what Skinner's trying to do, is that Skinner has an idea of his system, and rather than, and it comes partly because of the market, the fact that he's not able to buy players, but rather than solving problems by changing the tactics, he solves the personnel issues by putting players in positions that suit the system, rather than changing the system to suit the players. And it's very idealist, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because he has a clear idea of how he wants to set up. I mean, people criticise like Bize playing right back, but in terms of wanting the right back to overlap, if you ask Ethan Mannion to do that, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have the same attacking output from your right back. So that made sense for that moment. Things like putting Miyazawa in the defensive midfielder, where he wants someone who can carry the ball forwards very well, and he had no defensive midfielders who are able to progress the ball through carries, and so drive that ball forwards. And we've seen Clinton in that role as well.
Yeah.
But Araujo isn't, from what we've seen yet, a great ball carrier. Jansen's not a ball carrier. She can't really run. So then you've got a problem with her recovering. And Nalsoon isn't really a ball carrier.
Yeah.
So he fixes problems by playing players in roles that aren't familiar, but because they're the right profile for that position, and he thinks he can coach players into those positions, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
If he could go out and sign a player who perfectly fits that role, then of course he would do that, but he can't. And so I think he's doing a very good job to play players in positions that make sense tactically.
Yeah, and I think that also, and this is a problem that I still think it happens across the women's game, is that ideas and opinions on certain, and it happens in life, but you see it a lot in the women's game, where opinions and ideas about managers and players and clubs are based on one moment or a couple of years ago. I agree. I think a few years back, Skinner had a lot of problems and was not but he's not the man. He's not that same manager today. We saw last year how I think tactically he looks much better. He woke up a little bit. He realised, a third into the season, that forcing Clinton and two into the same team did not work. And for me, last season, yes, they won the FA Cup 2 years ago, but last season was Skinner's best season as a manager and as a person. I thought he got it much better. He came across so much better in his conferences, and he grew as a coach and as a person so much last year. And I give him massive credit for that, because it's not an easy thing to do. When you are a coach, when you are set in your ways, he changed last year and he developed, and look what they did. Look how they tore apart Man City. That, for me, across the whole of WSL last season, is still the best coach performance we saw in any game across the board. It's up there with Chelsea versus Man City at Stamford Bridge, and it's up there with some of Brighton's work as well. But overall, that 90 minutes against City at the Etihad was the best coach performance we saw from any manager across the league last season.
I think the problem is people have already made their mind up on Skinner.
Of course.
And so it's difficult to win that back. And I think it was the same case with Jonas Eidevall.
Yes.
I think Eidevall was a very good tactician. I don't think he spoke well in the media, and that was part of his problem.
Yeah.
But the things people criticised Eidevall for were tactics, which makes no sense because he's a very good tactician, and transfers. But at that time, Arsenal didn't have a recruitment strategy in place. They didn't have the team there that would go out and scout the right players, or the ability to go and get those right players. So instead, what he decided to do was go for players he knew and players he understood. So a lot of them were players from Sweden, because he coached in that league, he knows those players, and so he could trust that those players would come in and he knows what to expect from them. And other players that he coached and worked with before. So they didn't really see that huge progression. What's different now is, as we've seen this window, Slagers have got a very good recruitment team and a lot of money to invest, and they've gone out and splashed on Olivia Smith, and it's a very good deal. So yeah. E-Will says, do you think Skinner would drop Gautam for Rolfo? I think Rolfo's going to be an interesting one, because viewing it from Skinner's perspective, it's not the profile he would have wanted from a left winger in terms of, but I think she'll work in that role in terms of holding the width. So that'll be interesting to see.
Again, they'll rotate. It's as simple as that. Again, when transfers come in, and again, you see it a lot with people saying, well, is Smith going to drop Kelly out the side? Is Smith going to drop Ford out the side? What is now happening, and what is good, I think people will start to understand across the landscape of football, is that you start to lose that sense of players being dropped for others. Rotation is such an undervalued. It's not undervalued.
This is a problem across how all fans view football, because because of things like FIFA and lineup builder and all these sort of things. you picture the team as 11 players, and actually it's not. It's 23 players in a squad. You pick the 11 on the day that make the most sense tactically, and so different profiles suit different games. The problem with Gauton and Rolfo is that there is very little difference in their profile.
Yes.
They're both touchline wingers. They're both players that are going to want to hug the touchline, look to cross the ball in. The difference is Rolfo's slightly better. So the only rotation you get there is when you're playing a weaker opponent, you rest Rolfo. When you're playing a stronger opponent, you play Rolfo, and you make sure Rolfo doesn't get injured. What Skinner would probably like is to have some different profiles, different options for different games. But yeah, United's recruitment strategy is by bringing anyone who will come in on a free, and that doesn't always work.
No,
but
it doesn't.
I think they've done well with the very limited investment that they've got. Phil says, yeah, but Arsenal and Chelsea are competing on different levels in terms of investment and situation. Well, I don't know what that was in reply to, because there's been a few different questions about Arsenal and Chelsea. Jason says, would you be satisfied if Chelsea lost domestic comps but won the Champions League? I think there's a desperation from Chelsea fans to win the Champions League, and I get it, because it's the one trophy that's eluded Chelsea for years. But I don't really think you can just ignore domestic competitions and then win the Champions League because of it. I think if Chelsea are going to be good enough this year to win the Champions League, they will be good enough to win a domestic competition as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there's two things I have with this. Is that one, it's not as simple as that, because domestic competitions vary.
I want Chelsea to win every trophy every season.
Of course. Every trophy varies, because if you're saying, would I swap a WSL for a Champions League? Absolutely not. No chance. Not a chance, because the consecutive winning of the league from Chelsea is as impressive as winning the Champions League title, winning any trophy. Even if you won the League Cup 6 times in a row, that is still incredibly impressive. So
I would be amazed if anyone
that would be
it's like, why are they only winning the League Cup?
Arsenal were very close to it. They used to love that. It was bread and butter.
Yeah.
But I think that it's very difficult to say in terms of very literally, would you throw away this trophy for the Champions League? Because it depends how you view it. It depends how the context of each game, or how you get knocked out and things like that. The other thing is, yes, Arsenal, I mentioned earlier about that Arsenal throwing away any chance of the league title when they put out the second string side against Villa and got torn apart, and then they did the same against Brighton and lost that game and struggled in that game as well. And I think, to be honest, yes, they did win the Champions League, but that was winning the Champions League wasn't fortunate, but that decision was fortunate, because if they hadn't won the Champions League, the fans would have been outraged at the fact they rotated in that game. They took a massive risk by putting all their eggs in the Champions League basket, and yes, it paid off. But imagine if Arsenal hadn't won the Champions League, because if they hadn't focused on that game, they'd have played full strength against Villa, they'd have won that game, and could have been 3 points behind Chelsea. And if they hadn't won the Champions League, people would have viewed it as a massive waste of an opportunity to potentially win the league title. So I think that in that sense, the decision from Slagers and everyone to rotate, they got away with that one. So I think that shows where it's at, where yes, if Chelsea were to drop the league title or drop the FA Cup and gone to win the Champions League, that would be brilliant. But if Chelsea were to put all their eggs into the Champions League basket and rotate in the FA Cup and get knocked out, and then they didn't win the Champions League, I would look at it and go, what a wasted opportunity to win the FA Cup. Shouldn't have done that. Silly thing to do. And they threw away an opportunity to win the FA Cup once again. That's the thing for me, is that it's, as much as I'd love to see Chelsea win the Champions League, there's no point throwing away domestic dominance in order to hunt European glory, especially with how good Barcelona are, how good Lyon look right now, and the fact that Arsenal are reigning champions. There's no point being...
This season's a good opportunity because of the situation Barcelona are in. I think a lot of teams will be licking their lips.
Yeah.
I know Lyon are incredible.
They might win it.
We've got a video coming out Monday where I'm going to talk about that, and the fact that they're probably the best team in the world right now. But yeah, that would be very interesting. Fiona says, do you think Chelsea have the belief they can win the Champions League? Absolutely.
Every club does.
Chelsea have the best player in the world. The question is, can she stay fit for a season? Lauren James.
Yes.
Chelsea have to get better at managing her. And the issue is they can't continue to rely on James to get them through league matches.
No.
They've got to have other players who step up. I think Chelsea have a big transfer towards the end of this window. I just can't see that they don't.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling there's something big coming. I mean, there's always rumours that Chelsea are going to be looking at someone. I just think something big will happen before the end of this window. The other big one I want to talk about, we haven't spoken about yet, and there's a lot of Arsenal fans, so let's get opinions from Arsenal fans. Grace Clinton to Arsenal. It's still being rumoured. I think it would be a very good signing. personally. Do they need her? I don't. That's one we can debate. But I think it's a very good signing. The only thing, the problem United have is they can't fit Toon and Clinton in the same team. And if Clinton knows she won't be a starting player, she knows that she will get probably, arguably, equal or better minutes at Arsenal, which I think speaks volumes. Absolutely.
Would she? Who over?
Mana.
Really?
Surely she starts over freedom.
Well, I thought that Kafaji might get some minutes last year, and by all means, she fell into a black hole.
That's a completely different player. That's a player who's unproven at this level compared to Grace Clinton, who I would argue is an incredibly good player. I think she'd do well in that attack midfield role.
I think that they should rotate, but again, what are we going to get from Renee Slagers? Is it going to be a Slagers that sticks to the same 11 like she did last season, or is it a Slagers that learns to use her squad? And can Grace Clinton take a punt on that? Because if she moves to Arsenal and doesn't start, then I think she'd be disappointed. Because she should start with Freedom Arnhem, but Marnhem had a good season last year, and Slagers has fallen into the trap that so many quality managers do of developing favourites and then sticking to them. And yes, that works sometimes, Serena Wiegman. Yes, it doesn't work sometimes, also Serena Wiegman. So it's a big punt for Clinton to move, because I think she's settled. I think there's no harm in rotating Clinton and Toon. Again, but I think they're slightly different. They can offer you different things in certain games. Clinton can also play deeper. So I think that it's one of those where Clinton would be leaving a setup where I think that she is adored by United fans. She is one that she is.
You don't think she'd be adored by Arsenal fans?
Oh, Arsenal fans would adore anyone that walked in that door. To be completely honest,
an English international, you can't tell me she's not going to be
she's
like
not blonde.
That's great. Finally, someone who isn't blonde. That'd be a great signing for them. Phil says, I like Clinton, not sure where she fits. Will says, not going to get minutes at Arsenal because midfield is stacked. Jason says, doesn't she play the same role as KCC? Not really. Cooney Cross is more of a
but again,
progressive passer. Clinton more of a progressive carrier, and so Clinton is a much better goal scorer, a creator than I would say.
I'd love to see Cooney Cross play football.
I think she'll get minutes in the pivot.
I really hope so, because I think she's an incredibly talented player. And I think, she started that City game at the Joey where Arsenal completely tore them apart. She was superb in that football match. And again, it's a big question, but yeah, I do think I'd love to, before Arsenal bring in any more players, they need to use the players they've already got in those positions. That's the thing for me. That's why I look at it, is that it's the same reason why I feel for the, they've had to let Godfrey go. They've loaned out Kafaji. We don't know what's going on with Leah because they haven't used those players and now they've gone.
Vivian Leah is only 18 or just turned 18, isn't she? Kafaji, I just don't see her route to the first team for.
Not anymore, no. She's that bridge has been burnt over last season.
It depends. If she has a really good season at Brighton, maybe they'll look to integrate her.
No, she'll leave there. If I'm Rosa Kafaji right now, I sit there and go, I don't want to play for Arsenal ever again.
Depends what Slager says though. It's very much if you do well, you're going to come back and be in the first team setup. There's definitely an opportunity there. The problem is she didn't do enough of the minutes she had, but I think she should have had more minutes earlier in the season. The problem was they tried to shoehorn her getting minutes towards the back half of the campaign where there weren't really enough minutes to go around, and so she only really played games that either didn't matter, so dead rubber fixtures, or the last 15 minutes when the game was already played. So I just don't think we really saw enough. Steven said, I want to see Paloma given a chance after her ACL. She was looking so good for her injury. I think she'll play deeper. I don't view her as an attack midfielder. I know Slagers has played her there, but I think that was being more protective of not bringing in a player who's just had an ACL injury and playing her in probably the most intensive position at Arsenal, which is that defence midfield role, where she needs them to be incredibly mobile to defend transitions. So I think that was a concern. But Paloma, I think, will come back and do really well. I expect her to be in a pivot with either Caldente, and that'd be very aggressive, or a more deep line playmaker, and we see Caldente on the left wing.
Paloma, for me, obviously, I agree. On her day, it's absolutely brilliant, but going into this season is still a little bit of an unknown. And it's the same. It's the same with Sam Kerr at Chelsea, where for Arsenal.
That's the thing for Chelsea. They either have the best striker in the league or someone who, we have no idea where Sam Kerr's level is.
And it's the same with Palova. We've seen at Arsenal where it has taken Williamson quite a while to get back to her very, very best. And I think she's just started to get there. I think some of the performances like the Euros final for me was the best performance we've seen from Leah Williamson in a very long time. And we've seen how after her ACL injury, it has taken her time to get back to her peak performance. Beth Mead still hasn't got back, and for me will never get back to her best. And that is where I sit with Palova, is that she was a phenomenal player before she got injured, and same with Sam Kerr, and I'm worried for both of them that is will they get back to their very, very best? And it would be a shame. Obviously, they of course they can.
I think it's different with Plover and Kerr because Kerr is 32 now.
True.
Winding down anyway. I am worried this will be her last year at Chelsea. And criticising Arsenal fans for being too sentimental, but I'm absolutely sentimental with Sam Kerr. That's a completely different thing. I'm a hypocrite, but absolutely adore Sam Kerr, and so to see her go would be sad. But yeah, I do think I think this could be our last season with Chelsea. It depends what happens. JRK, people saying Chelsea need a new right winger. It's Gado says I feel Chelsea need a right winger, but I'm also worried about how the squad will be managed with so many players. It depends very much on what version of Carnreid comes, because if we get the player who was very good in October and November, if we get the player who was excellent at the Euros, it's a completely different conversation. Yeah, I feel like then it's Chelsea could probably do with a backup right winger, but it's fine for now. If we get the player that played from sort of November onwards, we desperately need a right winger who's actually going to be able to play after the first 2 months of the season and look quality. So it all depends what you get from Carnreid.
It's for me, Carnreid and Guro Reiten are in exactly the same position at Chelsea, where if you get them both at their best, happy days, sit back, relax, and watch them absolutely tear every single team in the world apart. But if we get the Reiten from the last couple of seasons, if we get the Carnreid from, as you say, 2025, between Jan and June 2025, then 100% Chelsea are going to need to reinforce in that area. But it's a really difficult one. I'd hate to be in that position as Ballon Pastor, because what do you do? Do you back the players because you know the ability that they could unlock next year? Or do you go, you weren't good enough last year, you weren't consistent enough last season, so we're going to have to bring in players that can rotate with you or replace you? And it's a really difficult position to have, because I am still a personal believer that Guro Reiten on her day is one of the best players in the world.
Absolutely.
But the problem is I haven't seen that version of Guro since Bristol City 8-0 at Kings Meadow, and that was the only time we saw that level of Guro across the last year and a half probably. And yet again, that's not what Chelsea need. They don't need one-off world-class performances. They need Guro Reiten, who can deliver every single week and set the world on fire, because that is the kind of player she is. But I think everyone, not just Chelsea fans, would love to see a player like Guro Reiten back to West, because she's a type of player where, again, like your Bob Matisse, like your Lauren Jameses, and like your Mariona Calentes, when Guro Reiten is at her best and on the football, it is just so enjoyable to watch. She makes football look so easy on her day, and I really hope this season that she can unlock her full potential, because she will be a game changer. She's the type of player that can seriously win you trophies, because that's how good she can be.
Yeah, definitely. So, E-Will says Mara Albert is good at right wing. I guess good cover. I think she's more of an attacking midfielder or a sort of second striker. Very much depends again on how Chelsea are looking to play this season. Jason says, I think Guro Reiten will be faded out after this campaign.
Which would hurt, but I think to be honest, if she doesn't perform this season, then it's the right decision.
It depends on how she plays this year. But yeah, she didn't look good at the Euros. I was concerned about that. Jason says, Reiten, Bright, Kurt, all out of contract. Similar question from Fiona. Germa had the captain's armband, apparently stay for Chelsea. Is Millie winding down? I think it's only natural, unless Chelsea play a back through this season, in which case they can play Germa, Bierman, and Bright with Buchanan and Bjorn. That gives them good coverage. If they play a back two, how do all five of them get enough minutes? They don't. And so I think it would be Bright who would probably leave at the end of the season, given her age now. I think we're starting to see signs of her slowing down. I think towards the end of last season, she really struggled with the fatigue of it all. So I don't think it's bad that Chelsea have got five options that I would consider, top centre backs. Yeah. That's ridiculous. When you look at Arsenal, and you would say that all five of them would start alongside Leah Williamson. So I don't think that's a bad thing for Chelsea to have. No. Is that such strength in depth? And actually, I think Chelsea could play a back three this season, in which case they need five centre backs. Yeah. But yeah, I think looking at those options, I wouldn't be surprised if either Bright or Buchanan moved on at the end of next season.
It's the perfect time to do it, because you've brought in Berman, who has potentially one of the best centre halves in the world, and is playing at a very high level. You've got Natalie Bjorn, who is in her prime right now, and you've just gone and signed
probably 5 years.
Yeah, of course, and you've gone and signed Naomi Gurman, one of the best centre halves is also in the world right now,
and will be for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that As you say, Buchanan has just come back from a really long injury, and again will take time to get back to well, any kind of really good level, and probably won't get back to her best. Millie Bright has just had surgery, has been dropped by England, and for me, I don't see how. I think she'll find it difficult to get back into the England setup now, and I think that bridge has been burnt, and I think she's done.
It depends on how much Wiegman doesn't want to play Laetitia.
That is very true. You know, Bright, she's also got the podcast already, so that's sorted. It's not like she's out of the game. She's her and Rachel Daly's already retired for everything. She can go join her. And
Daly's playing the season.
Is she? Well,
I mean, I don't know. She's not going to start.
No,
I think it'll be Nunes up front and rotating with Sam.
That is true.
And Daly's already sort of become a rotation.
I think this could be the last season for both of them.
Yeah.
You know, they've got their podcast, Daily Brightness. Go and do that. As you stick in football, you can still be around the sport. But yeah, I do think that.
Do you not think both of them could continue playing?
No, I don't know. I think this will be the last. Continue playing at the top level. Of course, they could both take steps down, but do I see Millie Bright leaving Chelsea to join another club? No.
What about Fat Payday in the end of WSL?
Maybe. No. Oh,
No?
No, because then how she could do a podcast internationally, that don't work like that.
They do it online anyway.
They do, but why?
What if they both move to America? What if Daly also they go to the same team?
And you create this Gotham side that's got Carter, Berger, Brighton, Daly, and alongside all the brilliant players they've got out over there, they're just tearing the league apart.
Yeah. Talking about WSL, because we haven't actually spoken about it at all. I want to talk about Boston Legacy.
Yes.
Because I'm fascinated by the project, because how do you build a football team from nothing?
We're going to find out.
Like,
I love it.
You have to find an entire... Like, it's not like Inter Miami, where they went, well, we'll just... Like, we've got this, all these young players, so we'll just bring all those in. That's fine. We've sorted that aspect. They've got, like, a squad there. And then what we'll do is we'll just buy everyone who's ever played for Barcelona, and we'll pay them loads of money. And they had, obviously, Beckham as the name. Boston are coming in as a side with sort of a lot of backing, but they've only just decided who their manager is. They're starting now to look at some players. But, how do you just build out 26 players who've never played with each other before and that work?
It's a brilliant scenario because, as you say, the sides that we've, like, to compare or to put into perspective, like London City already have an owner and had Michelle Kane started up after she'd already dominated and knew the world of football through Leon.
But also, London City were a team before.
Yes, and
they took over Millwall, so they had all those players, and it was just that transition.
Yeah,
you got to bring in 26 new players and make them glued.
As you say, Inter Miami had Beckham. #United already had the social media following from being a YouTube team and turned that to become a professional football
and they
club.
Had players.
And they had exactly. They had footballers. We've seen the same with SC Dons as well. They've come through and they had the team from Sunday and they've just burst into the Saturday scene. They're all but at Boston they've got nothing. They haven't got a men's side to leech off. They haven't been playing non-league football that they're now just going to push into professional league. They haven't got they haven't got people who know the support. It's going to be it's exciting.
We'll start with Utah, as Phil says, and the way to do it is the fact they don't have relegations. They can just do it slowly. But
there's no consequences.
That is the problem I find with American sports. I just can't really get into, like, when there's just no.
If you're rubbish, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. If you're terrible, it's all right because you just want to start being more terrible, so then you get the best player next year. Like,
crazy.
I think that's the problem, and as Ewell says, it's really common in America building teams up from the bottom for that reason. Yeah. There is no relegation. There's no consequence to failing the first few times. So
it'd be fun to see them do it.
You make a good point.
I look forward to seeing what they can do. Like, yes, as you say, they will take their time to get going, but it's not, new team, new competition could make it pretty interesting, and obviously they are exploring ideas, and that's the thing. I think that what I'm really enjoying at the moment across the women's game is we are starting to get these rumours and things about new ideas. Yes, 3/4 of them from the WPA, or they've rebranded, I can't remember what their name is now, but
they just keep rebranding things.
Nikki Doucette keeps throwing ideas out.
Now just called WSL Co or something like that.
Yeah, something like
that. Just
to
make it harder to criticise specifically Nikki Doucette.
And it's just like there's some great ideas going in, and we're seeing some improvements. I still think on the pitch we've got a long way to go. We haven't even got goal line technology. That is a problem for me. Credit to the Liga F. We criticise the investment from the clubs out there, but I think VAR manager review system is going to be extremely exciting to watch, and I'm very intrigued to see how that will be implemented, because that is something
It's
Nicky
a shame there's not going to be any players, because none of the clubs have any want to spend any money.
Petty Romy is appealing against nothing. There's no one there at Barcelona, but I think that is an interesting. It's a shame that the league have decided to put in a good concept, but it's a league that
they've mismanaged every other aspect of it.
To be fair, I'm saying that I want to watch it. Where am I going to watch it? They haven't. DAZN haven't renewed the rights yet. The league starts in 2 weeks.
And this is the problem as well. Why would they? The WSL is the most exciting package at the moment. That's why they've sold huge rights to Sky Sports. Obviously, the Champions League sells every year. I mean, that's gone to Disney Plus now. I think we'll start seeing more move towards different streaming services. I think the DAZN's had the Women's Champions League has been decent, but it'd be interesting to see where this all goes. I mean, we've already seen the WSL move away from YouTube. They're still going to have one game a match week now, which is they've gone back on their decision to make it all televised. The Champions League, I don't think will have any games on YouTube this season. I think they're all Disney Plus apart from one BBC fixture and match week in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I agree that there has to be some football on free-to-air TV. I think that's very important. But I think in terms of bringing money in through TV revenue, you have to put it behind you have to put the majority of games behind a paywall.
And I think that, again, obviously, that is another point where you have to look at it from both, because a lot of people have been outraged and it's a disgrace. They've put all the games behind a paywall and stuff, but the game has to grow. The game will simply not grow without the TV rights deals. Look at how much money people like Sky pay in men's football. It's an extortionate amount of money. And the women's game, the deal, I agree, the actual deal was stupidly signed. Whoever did that deal needs to have a long, because why was the deal so long? Because they signed that deal years ago, before the boom that we've seen over the last couple of years. So the deal is so cheap for what it is right now. But it's something, that deal needs to be looked at, and that deal needs to be changed, because whoever decided that is at a massive balls up. But the problem is, I think it's through till the end of 26-27, which they... If I'm the WSL, I'd look to bring that a year forward, because when you expand the league, surely that's a great time to go get a new rights deal.
Yeah, you can't really just ignore contracts.
Maybe run off to TNT or something.
What, TNT
actually no,
buy Sky out of the contract?
Yeah,
and
they're not doing that. They like loads of sports where you pay nothing for it and then don't put it on. But yeah, I think that
I also don't want to watch Rio Ferdinand try and analyse women's football.
That sounds that sounds horrendous. Like, that sounds like terrible. But yeah, I think that what we've got right now in women's football overall, this has got very far away, but here I am, is that we're in a very much seesaw period where we are seeing some great movements. We're seeing, sides like London City come through. We're seeing league expansions in England. We're seeing VAR brought into the Spanish league, which is the weirdest one to do it, because that's the most corrupt FA in Europe. We're seeing new teams come into the NWSL. We're seeing those improvements, but I still think there are also some things that are weighing it down. The other thing we've got in Spain as well, which I think is great in La Liga and the Liga F, is they're not going to announce the referees. Usually, for pride context, usually every single league in the world will announce the referees for the weekend a week in advance. Spain have stopped doing that. To try and combat corruption, they're going to release their referees 24 hours before the game, which is an interesting way of doing it, but let's hope it works for the sake of the landscape. But
maybe a better way to tackle corruption, in my opinion, would be don't let them do it. Punish the people involved.
Maybe.
When the Calcio Pioli scandal happened in Italy, they took titles off of clubs. They had huge fines, huge relegations, points deductions, and every club realised, don't do this again. This would be quite bad. In Spain, they go, pay us a little bit of money, Barcelona, and we'll just ignore that.
Yeah.
And that's that. There's a huge amount of corruption in the RFEF, but that is a topic for people much more adverse.
I think that. But overall, we are in a great period where we've had brilliant summers for Italy and Switzerland, which see the grain grow. Liga F is developing in terms of what the league are doing. WSL is expanding in a year's time. We're seeing all these great movements, but we've still got lack of investment from some clubs. Barcelona falling apart. And it's annoying that we've still got those negatives that are kind of keeping it balanced. It's not just, and of course that's normal with the growth of the game. It's not going to be, oh my God, everything's booming, happy days. There are going to be negatives, but I think we're in a seesaw period, and I really hope that that across the world in women's football, it's gonna go. The decision is gonna be made right, and it's gonna go the right way rather than going the wrong way. I think we're getting to a crossroads. We're getting to a crossroads with the game, and I really hope they get it right.
I think we're still at a position, but I don't think it's going to go like negatively.
I thought we horrendous.
It's either just sort of stagnation or huge exponential growth.
Yes.
I think the problem at the moment is you've got a mixture of teams that want to push the game forwards really quickly, and then the teams that don't want to are either then being left behind or pushing back against that, and that's creating a bit of a friction at the moment. What you need is all the teams at the top level aligned on a view, and I think some of the decisions for me from the WPLL, I don't think renaming the championship to WSL 2 and giving it less of an identity makes any sense to me. But yeah, Fiona as well says, lads, thank you, Fiona. Have we got anything else to touch on? We've got about 10 minutes left of what we plan to cover tonight. We've got through our list. So if there's anything you want us to talk about in the last 10 minutes, get it in the live chat. We'll talk about it. But I'm very excited for the next.
I can't wait.
Premier League's back today, and as a football fan, absolutely can't wait for an hour and 10 minutes time when Liverpool kicks off. I'll feel the same in 3 weeks' time when Chelsea Man City kicks off.
Yeah, I saw this great point where it was great. I couldn't decide. I genuinely don't know what's better. When you get to this August-September time when football returns and it's great, or that winter period where you've got football every 3 days, you've got nothing else to do apart from sit in and watch brilliant contests.
Or the running.
All the running.
All debates, aren't
football, basically, when football's on, life's great.
Football never stops. What I've realised is when you watch both the men's and the women's game, and this is maybe unhealthy, but it also means that if you love football, you are always watching football. Yeah. It's just constant.
Yeah.
You know, I pity people that didn't watch the Women's Euros because they can't get over the fact that women are allowed to kick footballs. Because what an incredible experience. And I have not stopped watching football this year. And I won't stop watching football. No. And then next year, it's the Men's World Cup. And, I'll keep watching
off to the States, here I come. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I think that, overall, it's I love having football back. But also, in terms of, I mean, obviously, it'll be different. People tuning in might find it different. But from a content creation point, we haven't stopped. The whole summer has been women's football, and that is exactly what I want my summer to be.
Oh, absolutely. Love it. E. Will says, any options for right wing signing for Man United? Can't think of any off the top of my head.
Again, they're too late to the party. They are too late to the party.
Phil says, who wins the Ballon d'Or?
Someone did ask about this.
And we meant to do it more than 8 minutes.
Do we save it for next Friday?
Oh, how cruel to feel.
I know. Oh, okay, we could do a prediction. Okay.
Maybe we'll talk about it in more depth later, but let's get... Who do you want to win the Ballon d'Or, and who do you think will win the Ballon d'Or?
I think a Barcelona player will win it. Who do I think deserves to win it? Yeah. Has to be, for me, either Russo or Williamson.
I would say Williamson or Marta. I think when you consider Marta won the NWSL Championship and the Copa America... She did everything she could this year.
Silver medalist
in the Olympics. She has to be up there.
Do they feature the Olympics?
No, that would have been last season's just.
Was it?
Yeah, it's now.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
They've changed it slightly.
Of course.
So it counts it makes more sense. It counts the domestic season. Obviously, that negatively impacts America.
Yeah.
But it does mean that Marta gets her Copa America included. So that seems quite good.
Yeah.
I would say for me... Yeah, Williamson's the only other one because she won the Champions League and the Euros. I wouldn't have Kelly in conversation. She didn't play enough minutes this season for club and country. I wouldn't have Mead in the conversation. I don't think her impact was big enough. Russo's definitely up there, but if you're picking Russo because of her impact for Arsenal and England, then I would argue Williamson deserves it more than Russo.
Yes. Yeah. Nominations, by the way, joke.
Yeah. What is happening?
How was...
I understand Arsenal won the Champions League, right? But Steph Catley was not in the best 30 players over this season. And Lauren James not in the scene. They both won a major trophy each in terms of the Champions League and the Euros, which count the highest, presumably. Yeah. And Lauren James won a domestic invincible treble this season and didn't make the Ballon d'Or nominations. It's absurd. I know she was injured for bits of the season.
Did Katie McCabe get nominated?
Probably.
Well, if she did, that's wrong, because the third criteria on the list, there's 3 criterias, and one of them is fair play and conduct. So she should know nowhere near it. But I agree. Caroline Weir, How? What? Why?
Yeah, Scotland weren't even at the Euros. Real Madrid didn't win anything. And so was her individual performances that good?
No.
Not for
Nowhere
me.
near.
I don't know. I think they just didn't want to end up having all the top players. But
They did, which is stupid because the whole point.
agreed. Lindsay Heaps is a strange nomination.
Yeah, again.
That one makes no sense.
I mean, unless she's got in through fair play. But, yeah.
McKay didn't get nominated. Okay.
Oh,
Apologies to Arsenal
well, there you
fans.
go. So they probably looked at it and went,
Fair
individual performances, tick. Team performances, tick. Fair play.
play.
No.
I think they just showed clips of the game against Liverpool where Liverpool just ran past it like 6 times.
But yeah, I agree. I think that how can you have a trophy with say 3 criterion?
Well, what else would you have?
Also, why is fair
Best
play
breath?
involved? Imagine you won.
No, but if you were like the best player in the world, but you also cantonade someone, like then you're not going to win the Ballon d'Or. Like, yeah, right.
If you win the quadruple and the WSL Golden Boot, but you got sent off 3 times, how imagine you don't win the Ballon d'Or? Rubbish. But yeah, I think that overall it's a very Yashin Trophy. I thought the nominations were right. I thought
Who won that?
Hannah Hampton
Surely, right?
has to be. Van Donselaar was nominated, but I just think
Not just Kathleen Cole.
oh,
I think she probably made about 1 save in the league.
I will walk over there and smash the trophy up. But yeah, it has to be on Hampton. Domestic treble and the Euros. No other goalkeeper tops that this year.
Absolutely. And being pivotal in both of those.
In terms of the young trophy, what's it come? It was called Copper Trophy.
Why did they only nominate like 5 people for it?
And also, why were they all like 22?
No, that's fine because I think there's less younger players at the moment. So it's not many teams. There's less of a wide scope.
Yeah,
But I think Agyemang's nailed on for that. Surely.
yeah.
Lopez competes.
Captain for me didn't do enough
Captain's a very good
individually
year,
though.
and that's one to talk about next season because I think if she blossoms, there's an incredible footballer there
Yeah,
that I just don't think is rated incredibly highly at the moment.
yeah.
But she's a brilliant player. But yeah, I think it'll be either Agyemang or Vicky Lopez. Probably Agyemang. Alyssa says, "What did you think of Hannah's bottle shenanigans?" It's a fun story. I know, like Cole's denied it. Hannah Hampton's. Whatever happened,
Who cares?
like, and this is the thing. I don't get why Kathleen Cole denied it because it just reflects negatively on her. If she goes, if she just ignores it, right, then the Spain fans can still complain.
Yeah.
Because they can still say, "Oh well, this isn't fair," and Kathleen Cole would have saved all of the penalties. And it portrays Kathleen Cole in a better light that she didn't have her water bottle. Whatever happened, it makes her look better if Hannah Hampton hasn't launched it in the crowd. So I don't know why she came out and denied it.
It was a mess.
But yeah.
Hampton didn't really need to mention it. People saying it's disgraceful. No, is it against the laws? No.
No, Spain fans saying it's like the biggest crime against humanity. Kathleen Cole could have taken Hannah Hampton's bottle and launched it in the crowd if it happened. I think it's been so blown out of proportion.
Of course.
And I know, obviously, because it was on Talk Sport, that definitely played into it.
That wouldn't have got broadcast on any other channel whatsoever. But yeah.
But Talk Sport, posting on their socials with Hannah Hampton makes huge England confession that she tried to, all
At the
of
end
this.
of the day, at the end of the day, there's a reason Hampton put them on her arm. I don't really care. It's dark arts. It's not. It's not. I don't want to say it's not fair because it's part of the game. Yes, is in the interest of fair game and a good sport. Is it the right thing to do? No. Did it win the Euros? No. It did. It wasn't. If Kathleen Cole had her bottle, Spain wouldn't have won the Euros. It's not that
necessarily. Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah.
Not like black and white.
Who cares? It's a silly little spat. Neither of them should have really brought it up.
Really.
Everyone should have moved on from it by now.
And I think even after Hampton said it, what was the point for Kathleen Cole coming out and denying it? If Hampton does it, it's a brilliant move. If she doesn't,
funny, haha. Let's all move on.
Ewell says Marlon was nominated. That I don't get either. Don't think she was integral to Norway finishing in the quarterfinals after what was probably the worst tournament performance, worst quarterfinals run I think I've ever seen.
I don't think Marlon touched the ball in the Euro.
Yeah.
I just find it bizarre how again it's I complained that they have like the criterion isn't good enough because either they don't assess everything, either they focusing on one criteria or they focus on too many. It baffles me that the Ballon d'Or nominations, to be honest.
Yeah, I think people overrate the Ballon d'Or so highly. I don't care. It's a team sport. Yeah. Individual awards don't matter personally, especially awards voted by people who clearly don't watch women's football. Like the people that vote for the Ballon d'Or it's part international managers, so that bit's fine, and it's part journalists. But the journalists are elected. The journalists, but they're not women's football specific journalists. They're journalists who will have to pick across both. And obviously because France football don't care about women's football, they're just going to pick players that are interested in the men's one. So then they just put down who they, the club they like or the player they like. They don't care, and so you just don't end up with anything interesting.
So get girls on the ball. Get all those. We'll all do it.
I'm not even saying. I wouldn't say with I wouldn't classify us as journalists, but people like girls on the ball, people like Tim Stillman, people that Tom Gary, people like that who work in the women's game, who understand it. They should be the type of people voting on this. And of course, there's other brilliant journalists who I haven't named there. Don't come at me if you're one of them. Who I haven't named, but they should be the people voting on this sort of awards. Rather than it being down to
100%
people we don't really know. But I honestly don't care.
No.
Like, unless Lauren James wins it, in which case I'm going to spam pictures of that everywhere. Or if Sam Kerr won a Ballon d'Or, this would be replaced, and it would just be a wall of Sam Kerr holding a Ballon d'Or.
Wall with like a mural.
Yeah, I've got someone to paint it.
Yeah.
The day you walk in and I've got someone to paint Sam Kerr with the Ballon d'Or on the wall.
Unbiased, guys.
We are providing neutral coverage of Sam. There's a glare off the Ballon d'Or in the background. But yeah, we have hit 2 hours.
Hooray! No, Joe.
I am hungry and I want to watch the Premier League. So I think that is where
it's been great.
Around it. It's been lovely.
I've loved this.
What a start to the live shows. We were slightly concerned about interest in viewership, but as always, our expectations have been blown out of the water. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for the first ever Women's Football Transfer Show. We're hoping to make this a bit of a weekly thing. We'll be live next Friday, definitely.
Yes.
Probably same time, 5 till 7, if that slot seems to work incredibly well. So we'll do that. The week after that, we can't do Friday, so we'll probably do Thursday. Yeah. And the week after that, the WSL starts. So what we'll do is a Thursday night transfer deadline show. And then we'll be live on the Friday for Chelsea Man City. So look for those. It's going to be next Friday, and then after that, Thursday and Thursday. And then as we move into the new season, we'll do a video discussing this in greater depth. But a lot is changing. I'm moving away. Harry's going to be the only one here in person. So there's going to be a lot changing with how we do. Yeah, no, don't unsubscribe. I will still be on the content. But we are looking at doing some sort of Friday night live stream where we preview the weekend's action. When obviously there aren't games, so look out for something like that. There's so much up in the air at the moment, but yeah, that is something. What I can say is we're going to be live next Friday. We're going to be live the Thursday after that. We're going to be live the Thursday after that. So put that in your calendar and join us there. Then we're into the WSL action, so I can't wait. But that is everything from us today. Thank you guys very much for watching the first ever one of these shows, and we will see you next time.